All right, I feel like dog shit, but let's get into it anyways. We're gonna watch Feeble's video. I'm too lazy to even like interrupt him, so we'll just watch it. Dude, I feel like shit. Back at campsite, we went for the summer. The only channel we got played Littlest Hobo every morning. Fuck yeah, dude. I love Littlest Hobo. Just watch the first episode of Littlest Hobo. They throw a dog out of an airplane to parachute into a forest fire. It's insane. Oh, God, I'm feeling lazy. I guess we just have to jump right in. I just have a stomach ache, dude. I just want to like sit here and just rub my belly. But fuck it. Oh, in case this ends up on YouTube, just for the groundwork, we're gonna try and not be too combative. I just kind of want to hear what he thinks now, as he's given the game some time. And if anyone is thinking about commenting, oh, why is this guy just talking over the video the whole time? First of all, shut the fuck up, you fucking dipshit. Second of all, if you want to watch a video without someone talking over it, you can just go watch his video, which I suggest that you do if you care about getting the entire picture. And I encourage you to do that. I literally had people fucking saying like, why is this guy just talking over the video? It's like, go watch his video then, you fucking dumbass. Like, holy shit, you're brain dead. Been conditioned to average content, yeah. All right, let's jump in, boys.
Who's bad at Dark Souls? FromSoft fans are quick to tell them that they suck and need to get good. But what happens when the majority...
I hate that idea already. Damn, we're already 1 second in. I hate that idea. Like, no one's like out here to clown on noobs, unless losers are doing that, I guess. But like, people clown on people that complain about the game without like trying to understand it or get better. People that have scrub mentality, right? It's not like people enjoy making fun of people that are worse at a Souls game. Like, no one cares if you're good at a video game, right?
Majority of Souls vets find themselves on the other side of their own toxicity. This is exactly what happened with Elden Ring boss design. In order to understand what I'm talking about, let's start from the beginning. When Elden Ring launched, it was praised by both critics and audiences alike for being a beautiful open-world RPG that actually had good combat mechanics. At first, it seemed like everything was perfect. The new Souls game was hard, casuals were complaining, we were telling them to get good or use spirit ashes, and all was right with the world. But then a lot of Souls vets realized something. We couldn't get good at any of these stupid bullshit bosses either. Just about every boss in the game had seemingly infinite attack combos combined with high damage, and these issues only got worse in the endgame content. A few months after the game's release, Joseph Anderson published his critique on Elden Ring, where he stated how
I don't really consider it a critique. It seems more like just a first impressions game review.
Much he disliked the boss mechanics.
Because again, critiques have research and like effort, you know,
primarily for these same reasons. Joe's critique,
you attempt to, like, again, he calls it a critique, but like, if you are criticizing something, you should be like doing research to like know more about the topic you are speaking about, I feel like. Then again, I guess that really maybe is just my own like fucking idea of like what a critic should be well informed. But I guess you don't have to know anything to be a critic.
Caused a shift of negativity towards a FromSoft game, the likes of which has not been seen since Matthew Matosis released his critique of Dark Souls 2. The vast majority of Souls vets didn't like Elden Ring bosses, but every individual person was too scared of the toxic fandom that
Sylvanas? What does this mean?
They belong to say anything. Joe's video caused these Souls players to come out of the shadows and loudly proclaim, I don't dislike the game because I'm bad, it's just that Elden Ring bosses are unfair because they were made for spirit summons. Joseph Anderson had successfully altered public opinion to be that Elden Ring was a poorly designed game for casuals. All was well, but that all changed when the challenge runners attacked. Loux.
Did he put me on the same level as Ongball? Dude, it's weird because I don't even consider myself a challenge runner. But like, I guess I am now. Like, I still consider myself a PvPer. But honestly, that's a really good summary. Like, that's basically what happened. It had casual appeal, critics loved it, and then a lot of people, like he says, the Soul vets had a fucking bad time with it, which is why I think the term Souls veteran is such a fucking meme, because when I hear that, I just think people that have an ego about their perceived skill level in Souls games and how they think that like somehow they're like a good game, like a better gamer because they're like good at hard games. I feel like it's those people that took the hit the biggest when they had like this perceived like sense of skill that they have with these games, and they just got a big ego check with Elden Ring. Even I had that. I struggled really hard in Elden Ring, and I have thousands of hours in these games. Like, it's tough, which is nice. You want a hard game. You don't want it to be like a fucking easy game that you cakewalk with a new release, right?
Pine OS came out with his own video responding to Joseph Anderson, where he raised many valid arguments as to why he enjoys Elden Ring boss design. He stated that Elden Ring bosses did have a lot of openings when played optimally. Although he had some good points, I don't think I've ever been more irritated watching a YouTube video in my life than when I was watching Lupine insult Joe over and over again. After
First of all, I don't give a fuck what anyone thinks about me. Second of all, show me the clip. Show me the clip where I insulted Joseph Anderson. I didn't fucking insult him in that video. I didn't call him a dipshit. I didn't call him a dumbass. I didn't say that his mom was a whore. I didn't fucking talk shit about him. All I did was attack his ideas and make jokes, and I swear when I talk. And a lot of people felt that tone and immediately would write me off as being condescending because they were upset and sensitive with the way my tone was towards his ideas about a video game, which I think is fair to attack. All I did was show his gameplay. All I did was attack his ideas. I didn't fucking say that he's a dipshit or a hack. Like, I never insulted him. If you consider me calling him a scrub an insult, that's why I go out of my way to explicitly define the phrase scrub so that you understand what I'm talking about, because I don't call him that because it's an insult. I call him that because it's an apt descriptor. And I don't know, I guess you could say the memes at the end of the video, but like, it's a fucking meme, you dip, you know? I didn't insult them. No. I think people just get really upset because I swear and I disagree about a video game. But yeah, you criticize his criticisms. So by today's internet standards, that means you are attacking him. Yeah. It's like, I think his video is dog shit. I don't think he's a bad person or anything like that. I just think he made a terrible video. Like, that's it. I just think he has a bad attitude towards certain games. Like, I mean, isn't he a dad? He's probably an upstanding family man, I'm sure. I just don't care for his videos.
After all, as any good Joseph Anderson fan,
I feel like Feeble King would be pretty irritated watching this, because when I had that tone towards Anderson, Feeble King basically echoed all those same sentiments in every single one of his Elden Ring videos too, where he's like, the bosses never let you heal and they never let up, so there's never a safe time to punish, but also the bosses run away and teleport away, and that's also bad when they give you time to heal, because it's bad when they run away, and also it's bad when they're relentless because you can never heal and never punish. And it's like, those were the ideas that I talk about in this video, so he probably took it a bit personally too.
And knows anytime anyone on the internet insults him, it adds 1 month until the Witcher 3 video will come out. On a more serious note, I want to explain why I disliked Lupine's condescending attitude towards Joe in his video. The way I see it, some FromSoft bosses, like in Elden Ring, aren't designed for anyone except challenge runners to fully understand.
I don't think so. I mean, maybe. Let's see where he goes with it, I guess. I don't care what he thinks about my attitude, though. I don't care what anyone thinks about my attitude. Because, like I said, I only made the video just to give people a fresh mentality so that when next time they boot up Elden Ring, they can maybe come at it with a different combat playstyle and actually enjoy the game.
Let me explain. I view every...
Like, I'm not here to try to change Joseph Anderson's mind about anything. Like, don't get me wrong.
FromSoft boss like a puzzle where you try to memorize openings, movesets, and positioning tricks to avoid all damage while regularly dealing damage. However, unlike a normal puzzle game, you can still overcome a boss without solving the puzzle completely, since you don't die in one hit. This allows players to be convinced a boss is unfair bullshit when they just never fully understood the mechanics and were still allowed to progress. This is basically what Joe did with Pontiff in Dark Souls 3. Lupine calls Joe a scrub for not learning the mechanics, but it took me 3 level 1 runs to figure out how to consistently get openings on Phase 1 Pontiff, which is a bit ridiculous. If Dark Souls 3 bosses are puzzles, Pontiff is the optional extra hard puzzle that is supposed to be out of reach for the majority of players. Elden Ring.
Yeah, so the thing about Pontiff is that he is a definitely like really hard boss, and I hear it's because he was originally designed to be the final game boss. He's pretty hard, and he does do the Elden Ring logic of combo, like not extensions, like combo, just branching combo flowcharts in general, right? I did not think he was a scrub. The reason I showed him struggling on Pontiff was because he still cites that to this day about animation munching. Specifically, the Pontiff part was like my big like red flag where I was like, I think he's just disingenuous. Like, he's not, this is beyond pure laziness. This is just disingenuous. The fact that he will go in an editing timeline in slow motion and put 2 moves side by side in slow-mo in an editing timeline where you have Pontiff starting up an attack from neutral, and then you cherry pick another attack from the middle of a combo, and then you also look at those two moves and you notice that they look different, and then you still say that they are the exact same attack with no different telegraphs to further your bullshit narrative about animation munching, that's just lying. Like, that's just disingenuous to me. So, like, that's why I showed that. I didn't think he was a scrub specifically for not figuring out Pontiff, because Pontiff is a very difficult boss to, like, fully comprehend. But, like, the fact that he would do that was, like, that's why I wanted to show that.
Is essentially a game where every other boss is a Pontiff-sized puzzle, and Joe didn't solve a single puzzle correctly. Normally, this would be extremely embarrassing for a popular game critic, except for the fact that no one else understood these bosses either. Joe's Elden Ring critique had more misinformation in it than any other video on his entire channel, and it may have been the most positively received video he's ever released, except for the much anticipated Witcher 3 video. Clearly FromSoft messed up.
What is the meme with the Witcher 3 video? I don't get it. Did he make it or not?
This video was a defense for Elden Ring. You've been clickbaited. Sort of. Not really, I'm sorry. The first half of this video will be me attacking Elden Ring for how terrible it is at teaching the player boss mechanics. And in the second half of the video, I will throw endless praise at the bosses for how amazing they are once mechanically mastered. I will do this the only way I know how, which is through another boss tier list. For every Elden Ring boss that is mechanically amazing, I decided to not use any healing items to prove that I'm not relying on hit trading to win. And this includes Malenia, because I like Malenia now, for the most part.
Oh, wow. I think Malenia is like bottom tier shard bearer, like straight up. But like, she's an okay fight. She's not like a solid fight like Godfrey, but she's okay. Hard is the new normal. Oh, okay, whatever. We're going to listen to him. We're going to hear him out. I will say about Feeble King, it is already way more enjoyable to watch him than an Anderson video, because he, like, I might disagree with him, but he is able to clearly explain his thought process and his feelings. And like, you know, explicitly where he stands on these issues. So yeah, I'm already pumped up. This is already like a breath of fresh air to me. Why do I not like Malenia? I don't like Malenia because her phase 1 is slow. I feel like she should have been more combo heavy boss like Margit, or Morgott I should say, which is just a preference thing. But the fact is, like, if you cross her aggro range threshold, sometimes she just doesn't aggro, so then she just edge walks. It's really slow pace. If you're doing power stance quick weapons, she can animation cancel really quickly with her posture canceling and all that shit that she does. And then phase 2, like, conceptually and thematically, like, she's the goddess of rot, but like, she'll never proc rot on you. Like, you will die 20 times over before she builds your rot meter to full. So it doesn't really like, it's not like thematic for like the queen of rot, right? I do kind of like how she's weak to fire, but also she's in a puddle of water, so she gets extra fire resistance, so it balances out, because lore wise rot is weak to fire, and she uses the water to hear your footsteps, and that's how she fights you while blind. Clone attack, everyone bitches about waterfowl dance, but waterfowl dance is multiple ways to dodge it and whatever. We can get into that probably later. Like, the clone attack is the big bullshit in my opinion. That's an extremely hard attack to learn, and you have to grind to phase 2 every time to get an attempt at learning it, and it does a lot of damage. It'll two-shot you, and it's very fast, and if you mistime a roll because you get hit, the second one's probably going to hit you too. So I've tried so hard to learn that attack on my own, and I couldn't do it. I straight up couldn't do it. That was the one I just Bloodhound stepped and said, fuck it. But then that helped me enjoy it. I was like, all right, I'll just Bloodhound step through this attack. Boom. I beat the fight. I'll learn that shit later. And then, like, after a dozen fucking playthroughs, I saw a YouTube video of someone's like, okay, roll back, wait, forward. I'm like, okay, now I just do that from now on. Now I just know how to dodge it, so I just do that, and I have fun executing it. Yeah, I just have some, like, problems with the design concept for Malenia. I don't think she leans into, like, the rot concept enough, and I feel like she should have been more combo heavy instead of just, like, constantly stringing together, like, single attacks in a fast manner. Like, her phase 1 is just so fucking stagnant, you know? It's kind of a grind. People will say, like, her combo extendo where she jumps back into the air is bullshit. I don't mind that. The way I learned to deal with that is by doing neutral hops. I just jump at her, and if she doesn't continue the combo, if she starts standing up, I do a late landing R2 because she has super low poise. She will stagger. She can't cancel heavy staggers, so it works. And if she jumps back in the air, I just land, and then I roll. I just do an empty hop. So that's how I've learned to punish that. And I just learned to do that naturally. like I said, when I played Malenia, I was frustrated too because 2 out of the 3 days I played her, I was hammered. So like that was why it was pretty hard to beat Malenia for me. But yeah, Malenia is like, I don't think she's, because like people will say like, let me get like Nathan, right? What's that meme? Yeah, I'm a challenge runner and I don't like Malenia. People, let me guess. Undodgeable waterfowl. She heals on hit. Unblockable because of healing. Like, no. There are reasons not to like her. Like mostly the elevation in her arena kind of fucks with it. The elevation can fuck with the double slash, the quick slashes, to the point where if you're high enough on the edges of the arena, you like in the bowl, you can like not roll through it. You can get roll caught because of the elevation. And the other thing too is that elevation hard fucks with the clones like really badly. And the clone attack, I think, is like, it's not a brutal attack, it's just relentless and extremely hard to learn, and it's in phase 2. So like that's tough. Like the clone attack fucking is kind of a buzzkill for me, honestly. I think it's really cool, and now I know how to dodge it. I love dodging it. It's the same thing with waterfowl. I struggled to learn it. I almost learned it on my own, just wasn't reliable with medium rolling, so I just used Bloodhound Step, and then Bloodhound Step helped me learn it faster. And then yeah, then after a few playthroughs, I saw someone else do the upfront dodge, and I just started doing that, and now I love dodging it. Now I know how to dodge it. I love doing it. Like I don't have a problem like seeing someone else like just using a shield or something get through it. Like Elden Ring and Sekiro changed my mind, because I used to be exactly like Feeble King, where I'm like, I'm not using shields, I'm not using dick all, like I'm not using prosthetics, I'm not using anything. Sekiro changed my mind after playing it like hundreds of hours, because I found out how fun the prosthetics were after I watched Ong Ball. And then Elden Ring solidified that for me, where it's like, if I'm struggling so hard and it's just completely frustrating to like try and learn waterfowl dance on your own in a bubble with no referencing or support, unlike anything, like Jacob Geller says, nothing else in this world works that way. You are not expected to learn anything else on your own in life, like without any resources at all. But if you're wanting to do that on your first few playthroughs because you don't want spoilers, just lean a little bit on shields or Ashes of War like I did, and I had a way better time, and I got through the game, and I got a bit better on my own a few playthroughs, and then I saw how other people were doing it, and I'm like, that's cool, and I just adopted those strategies, and I have still a great time executing that. I don't think I would have enjoyed it more if I like put in the time to like, do you guys think you would enjoy the game more if you put in the time yourself to learn how to flawlessly dodge waterfowl 100% of the time with medium roll? Or like, I don't know, the clone attack too? Or like Reichard's lava quake? Do you think it would have been funner if you had done everything on your own because you also don't want to use any of the RPG mechanics? Like, no, I think it's a terrible mentality, and I've changed my mind about it. It's because of Elden Ring, and like Sekiro kind of got me thinking that way too. Like, why do I insist that I only like do a naked Zweihander run every time, you know? So I changed my mind.
In order to understand my main issues with Elden Ring boss design, I need to explain how
we'll get into it later, but like, why wouldn't you want to have a higher skill ceiling that you can get better at subsequent playthroughs, right?
FromSoft's difficulty.
Because like, if you think you're a good player at this game, why would you want it to be easy enough for majority of players to beat it? Because then wouldn't that be too easy for you if you think that you're better than most of the players, right?
Options impact player experience so much that it's almost like a whole new game. There are essentially 4 major difficulty settings. Very easy mode is with magic and summons, easy mode is with an extremely high DPS weapon that can hit trade, normal mode is an average build, and hard mode is generally a challenge run like beating the game at level 1 or without healing items or without upgrade materials, I don't know. There are a million.
But like, that's the thing, it's a spectrum. It's not 4 things. Like, it's like, what about just using shields? What about doing pure magic run, no summons? Like, what about using only melee spells like Flame of the Fell God setups with like Gavel of Haima? Like, you know, what about doing summons bare fist only with Mimic tier? So it's just you and your Mimic just fucking going to town pugilist style, you know, like taking these bosses to Pound Town, you know, with your bro. It's not just 4 things. It's a whole spectrum, right? You can dial it in at just perfectly, I feel like. I will say Elden Stars is omega fuck though. Yeah, and exactly. That kind of is betraying of like what his mentality is, right? When he says the average build. What he means is doing a medium roll build with a melee weapon with no shields, like Dark Souls. That's what he means when he says an average build. But it gets weird. What is an average build in Sekiro, right? Is hitlessing in Sekiro the same as using parries? Is an average build to not use parries in Bloodborne, but in that case you can't consistently do Gehrman? Yeah, just saying that I don't see it that way. I see it like a spectrum where like any single rational human player can get it as easy as hard as they want to be, right? Same thing with dragon fights. If you want, you can just stay on horseback the entire time of the dragon fight and just no roll them and just outposition them because they're slow. Or if you want, you can go on and off the horse. And if you want to be really hard against dragons, you stay in front of them and you learn to Midir fight them where you go for headshots. But that's what he means. That's how he perceives like the go-to. And like, not gonna lie, that's literally the exact mentality that I was in until I played a lot of Sekiro, because I didn't use prosthetics for a majority of it either. I just loved the mechanical satisfaction from parrying until I watched Ongball and I saw all the cool combinations and stuff that you can do. And I was like, that's amazing. I'm going to do that. That looks fun as hell. And then Elden Ring really changed my mind where I was like, this is like, I am like better than a lot of players in the Souls games because I spend way too much time in them. And even me, I just was hard stuck on bosses for days in Elden Ring. And that's because I refused to use Ashes of War and I refused to use shields and I refused to use summons. And I just made it way too unfun for myself. So I dialed it back a bit and I had way better time. So like it's convinced me just to like, it's changed my mindset, honestly. And yeah, I had a reckoning. Like, that's why, like, I don't actually like Malenia that much, but people think I do because of my video. It's because she was, like, my moment of, like, aha, my reckoning. And that was because that meme part in the Pokemon Souls segment where Mimic Tear is just beating the shit out of her. I did it as a joke. I summoned Mimic Tear. I'm like, let's let my Mimic Tear just solo her then. And the Mimic Tear was just going apeshit on her. Like, just playing. I was too worried about the healing. And he was just going super aggressive and posture breaking her nonstop. And I was like, what the hell? Maybe there's something to that. So I just like no holds barred, just went apeshit on her, hit traded a couple things and like smoked her. Like it wasn't even close. Like that little change in mentality made such a big difference. And then just a little bit of Bloodhound step to help with Waterfowl and the clone attack. And I was fucking set. Like that's all it took. So like she was my big fucking aha moment at the very end of the game. And then I went right back into the game with that new mentality and I loved it like more and more and more. And I learned more and more. That's why I use a lot of Malenia footage in that video, but she's still low tier Shardbearer boss for me. Although the Shardbearers are better than a lot of the Souls bosses in my opinion. I did a few different builds in ER, sorcery only, incants only, shield only, bow only. Yeah, the bow only, like there's no excuse not to have a ranged option, which like even in my run, you can see like I keep up the pace, but like if you had like a fucking just an offhand casting tool, I think that's the optimal way to play Elden Ring. Because like dragons and shit, like when they're doing something where you can't hit their head, you can just be throwing spells at their head, like Deathrite birds and stuff. Like you can keep up the pace of the combat so fast. So yeah, I think that's the best way to play.
Million other variances that impact difficulty like shields, rings, Bloodhound step, beating the game on a dance pad, and
oh, she's sick, dude. She's fucking, have you guys seen her? What the name? Miss Mika? Can you see that? Hold on. Dude, she beat Elden Ring fucking, oh, I think this is the run. She beat 2 Malenias simultaneously, dance pad and another controller. She's fucking legit. Yeah.
More, but these are the major categories. People who found Elden Ring challenging when played in easy modes.
So yeah, he did say, okay, there's obviously more, but like, he's like, these are the main, I guess, ways, but whatever. But like, I feel like everyone can dial it in exactly to how hard you want it to be. And like on a boss to boss basis, like you can change your talisman loadouts, you can do whatever you want.
Seem to enjoy the boss mechanics, and people who play in easy mode had a tougher time than normal but didn't mind too much.
Like you can simply respec your build and change out your talismans between like with every boss. So like if you like one boss, you can do it that way, and if you're just hard stuck on a boss, you can just like optimize your build a different way and just roll it if you want. Like you don't even have to like, it's not even like the whole playthrough. You can like change it between bosses easily.
Challenge runners were initially divided on Elden Ring until enough of them figured out how to optimize the bosses. The group of people that disliked Elden Ring bosses the most were those who enjoyed playing the game in normal mode, but the boss mechanics were so over the top that they were forced into a lower difficulty. The normal mode players reveal a glaring issue with FromSoft's.
I resent the phrase normal mode. So like whenever he says normal mode, I'm just gonna think when I play like a Dark Souls 1 boomer, basically, which is maybe you could consider that an insult, but I don't really like, you know, when you're playing like a Souls purist, you know, I think it's kind of an outdated game design at this point. It's like when Zelda just did Zelda for way too long for the same thing. Like, you know, it kind of gets stale. I like how they're doing new things and it still works, you know.
design of difficulty settings, which I have never noticed before. In order to substantially adjust difficulty, a player needs to fundamentally alter the way they play the game. If I want to adjust the difficulty of a rhythm game like Osu, I can find maps with lower difficulty levels, which will have less circles show up. This allows me to interact with the map's mechanics while still not being good at the game because I suck at Osu. Unfortunately, Dark Souls doesn't allow the player to edit the rhythm of a boss moveset, only every other factor.
Which is the core design philosophy of these games. Like, that's what Miyazaki has said in all the interviews. Like, we don't have an easy mode because we want players to have the same similar shared experiences. But obviously there are, like we said, with the spectrum of difficulty you can do with the RPG mechanics, there is leeway in that, but they want people to have the same similar experiences. They want people to discuss these games and have encountered the same things, like people that have both beaten Mohg, right? They don't want someone who beat it on like handicap mode or like Mohg, like, I don't know, infinite Mohg shackles or something, right?
You can alter the amount of mistakes allotted during the rhythm challenge with health and healing, the amount of time you keep fighting the boss with damage, and you can even skip learning the boss moveset entirely with magic, but you can.
This is true. There is nothing more sad than watching variety streamers first attempt phase skip Mohg phase 2. Like, I've said this before, but I watched Atrioc do Mohg with double Uchi. I think he had Rivers of Blood, cold Uchi. Twitch chat fucking somehow swindles every single variety streamer into using that fucking setup. And whatever, they just want to get the game over with because they're a variety streamer. I get it. But like, dude, like he just did 6 L1s against Mohg, double status popped, and like Mohg just died before you could heal. It was embarrassing. Like the fact that you're just like never fighting for Mohg phase 2 ever. Yeah. I've always and will continue to play these games rangeless, no summons or shields, and I won't dismiss other ways to play. Absolutely, Nathan. Like that's why I like doing that for my first few playthroughs when it's like it's hard to learn, so I will just use Ashes of War and stuff to make it like a slightly bit easier on myself, and I'll have a blast. And then after, when I'm looking up shit about the game because I don't care, then yeah, then I like learn how to, I get better at like, I use other people's knowledge and then I execute it and I have a great time doing that and I get really good. And then I start doing challenge runs where I'm like, now I'll just do that without leveling. And like, because like every time you can keep it fun by upping the ante of the difficulty every time that you play this game. So it's nice.
Not change.
It's nice that you can do that and not get bored of it like we would if it was just like easy enough to like casually do on your first time, right?
The boss moveset. This means that if a player doesn't enjoy the rhythm challenge of a boss, tools and in-game options won't make them enjoy.
With the exception of preventing waterfall dance and to heal if you don't mind using the internet to adjust difficulty. I don't, yeah.
Enjoy the game any.
Like I said, like Jacob Geller says, I highly, highly recommend Jacob Geller's The Philosophy of Sekiro. Great video. Actually an amazing video for Mentality. But, and it applies to every single Souls game ever, not just Sekiro. It's like I always say, like, you're not expected to learn, like, you're not going to enjoy doing a Rubik's Cube by learning it yourself. Like, you're not going to enjoy it more because you figured it out like a puzzle on your own. That is excruciatingly frustrating unless you're a math whiz, right? Like, what if you learned how to play piano without any fucking help at all? Like, nothing in life works that way. It's not like detracting from the enjoyment. Like, especially when people consider it like puzzles that once you know it, it's not fun anymore. Like, I don't think that's the way. Like, I just enjoy executing in this game. You know, I don't get it. Yeah. No shot you finish this before D&D. Bro, what time is it? 2:30? We're gonna delay D&D.
At one point in his video, Lupine states that if Joe didn't like the boss mechanics, he should have used more tools to make the game easier, without realizing that this wouldn't fix the problem for him.
That's a bit of a mischaracterization. I could see how you took it that way, but like he should have. I think he should have definitely done that. But this part, I was talking more about him saying that the game is boring. It just feels fucked that you would say that the game is boring and you're not going to use a majority of the things in the game. Like, using Ashes of War is fucking cool. It's fun. Like, using magic is fun. It seems like he is playing. Like, my point was not that he's having a... Why the fuck am I getting Discord notifications, bro? The point is, like, that he is saying the game is boring despite ignoring most of the shit in the game. Stop pinging me! Who the fuck is this? The point is that, like, you're saying the game is boring when you're ignoring 80% of the shit that the game devs put in the game for you to have fun with. You know, like it's weird that it's like reviewing a game without trying a lot of the stuff, right? And the other thing too is that like the game isn't boring. Like he is going out of his way to play boring. Like, you know, it's like people give me shit for like a logical fallacy when it's like when I said if he was not having fun, he's playing the game wrong. But it still rings true. If he is playing in a game that is just boring and frustrating, why not, instead of using that as a moment to be like, I should change my combat playstyle like I did, where I was like, I am not having fun. I am just going to use like an Ash of War, or like I'm going to use a shield. And then it was fun. Instead of doing that, he's like, this game is bullshit and boring for not letting me play this way, even though I'm having an unfun time and making it frustrating on myself. Like, that is not a game problem. That is a you problem, right? You can say like, I wanted to play this game and I just found it to be really boring to play that way. And I tried the other mechanics and I don't like them at all. So I just don't have fun playing this kind of game. That's just me personally. He didn't say that. He said this game is boring and all the other shit is worthless, basically.
Joe wants to have fun memorizing and overcoming each rhythm challenge, not finding a way to avoid it.
Then do that. Like, if you want to go out of your way to ignore 80% of the stuff in the game, do it. There's nothing stopping you. That's what I went to show people. If you just sit down and use your eyes and your brain for a little bit, you can figure it out. That's the reason Dark Souls 1 is so appealing. You can sit there and you can figure it out because it respects your intelligence and your persistence as a human being, and you can do it. Like, you got this, champ. That's why Dark Souls 1 was so refreshing, the game design. You can do that in Elden Ring. And to prove that, what I did for that video is like, okay, well, I like looking stuff up. So how about for Maliketh, one of the most complainable bosses, I will do no research at all and I will sit down by myself and I will learn how to fucking do this hitless with his Y-hander. And it took me 3 hours and I had very optimized punishes that you can see in that video. If you want to play like that, just play like that. Like, don't make excuses. Like, you can just do that. It's fair enough to do it. It's hard, yeah, but you want to play that way, right? You want a hard challenge. You want that satisfaction of solving a hard puzzle. You can do that. There's nothing stopping you. You just got to put in a little bit of effort is all. It's more effort. World's first no guide hitless Maliketh. And then the problem was, I'm like, okay, like I don't want to waste all day explaining how to hitless every fucking boss in the game. Here's Jordian's amazing high effort type up of a hitless guide on Maliketh, and people would see that and just be like, oh yeah, you're just a loser who reads hitless guides. No one should have to do that to beat a boss. I'm like, I don't read the hitless guides. I'm giving that for you because you're too lazy to figure it out on your own, and you say you don't want to do it because it's too hard and too time consuming. So here you go. Here's how to dodge it hitless. You're the one saying it's impossible. So here, it's not impossible. And they're like, oh, you just read guides. It's like, God damn it. Yeah, anyway.
One solution to this problem is to introduce an easy mode that changes boss mechanics. The issue is that having different mechanical challenges related to different difficulties would add way too much development time, and an even bigger problem is that it violates the first commandment of the Dark Souls religion, which is thou shalt not covet an easy mode. This means that the only solution for a player to enjoy Elden Ring bosses is to get good. Now let me ask you a question. If a game is released for over 95% of the player base does not understand how to interact with the mechanics.
Where is he getting this number from? 95%, if that's true, then 95% of the player base never understood Dark Souls. Show me how many people on Reddit right now can tell you how poise works in Dark Souls 1, Dark Souls 2, and Dark Souls 3. Because this style of gameplay of boss, the combat flowcharts has been around since Dark Souls 2, and people don't even know that. People were telling me that Gale was like the best boss they ever made because he was so intuitive, despite being one of the heaviest combo flowchart bosses in history outside of Elden Ring. Nobody ever understood these games fully. You don't have to beat them. Like, most people don't understand everything about these games. And that's just like a random number out of his ass too.
Of the developer or the player. And I'm fairly confident that maybe around 95% of players didn't understand the bosses because
like, I get it. Probably if you ask 95% of all the casual players who, like, especially because there's a lot of Souls newcomers, especially that, but even like the Souls vets, if you ask them, they probably wouldn't be able to explain it to you after a couple runs, right? I would agree with that, but like I said, that's just been the case since like every game. Like, No one fully understands. You don't fully have to understand the bosses to beat them, which is why I'm doing Godfrey right now, where I'm explicitly trying to not learn phase 2 to show that you can like hit listen without even having to learn the boss. Like you can get away with that. You don't have to understand everything about the game. That's why they don't tutorialize every single thing about the game. Because like you don't have to know that to beat it or enjoy it.
People who play in easy and very easy mode skip learning the bosses entirely, which is probably the majority of people who played the game. And the vast majority...
Yes, majority of the people don't understand how to like a boss's full explicit moveset and every single branch point. But you don't have to.
Majority of comments on many videos like...
Who's this comment? YouTube. I like this guy because he likes like fucking pulling up the YouTube comments, and I like doing that too because I'm an absolute degenerate. Whenever it comes to the argument that Elden Ring bosses feel like fighting a real person, I feel like people are missing out why they can be a bad thing. In Sekiro, it feels like I'm fighting a real person, but the game provides me the system that can interact with bosses in a move. In Sekiro, it feels like I'm fighting a real person. In Elden Ring, it feels like I'm fighting a video game character. What the fuck does that even mean? In this game, it just feels like I'm fighting a video game character. No shit, that's literally what you're fucking doing. And Sekiro doesn't feel like you're fighting a real person. It just feels like, you know, linear, basic AI shit, right? Like, if you want to play a game where it feels like you're fighting another player, go play a fucking fighting game. It feels way different. I misread? What? Hold on. Come on. In Sekiro, it feels like I'm a real person fighting a real person. In Elden Ring, it feels like I'm a video game character fighting a real person. Oh, what the fuck? That makes even less sense. What? What the fuck does that mean? I'm the video game character and the AI is the real person? Are they trying to like explain that it feels like a power dynamic difference between a boss and the player? Is that what they're getting at? I don't understand that at all. The stamina management, they'll attack until 0 stamina a lot. And the same thing in Anderson's video, like he said, he said explicitly, I was constantly running out of stamina, even with 40 endurance. If you're running out of stamina in fucking Elden Ring, that is because you are panic rolling and sprinting way too much. Like way too much. The boss's delayed attacks are in there so that you can regen a shit ton of stamina, and you basically have infinite stamina if you just manage it decently.
Joe's and mine are in agreement that the bosses were overtuned.
Bosses combos seem to randomly extend. Yeah, okay. Like this is what everyone said. Yeah, look, 10 months ago. This is what everyone said when Anderson's video came out. And exactly why I made that video. I didn't want to hear about how fucking people like attacks were undodgeable 4 years from now. And I probably will still. I guarantee you, because of Anderson's fucking video, 6 years from now, people are still gonna try and tell me that Elden Ring boss attacks are coin flips. I guarantee you. Because still to this day, people say that poise is disabled in DS3. Like, it's insane.
Because those are disgruntled players who try.
I swear, Elden Ring is the most forgiving stamina game they've ever done. Like, more so than Bloodborne. And then Sekiro doesn't have stamina, so what can you do?
Tried to play in normal mode, but did not enjoy it. This leaves challenge runners like Loux and his friends as the only group of...
Who are my friends? Like I didn't know any challenge runners except Stochastic when I made the video. Like, I'm a PvPer.
People who actually understand the boss mechanics.
I'm giving the challenge runners a bad name, dude. I just come out of nowhere. I don't even fucking challenge run. I do Drunkborn and Sakero, where I do a shot per death. I make this video. Everyone immediately assumes I'm some hotshot challenge runner, and I make them all look like assholes. Oh, shit.
Mechanics. And this has to be far less than 5% of the player base. I'd argue...
Again, he's just making up random fucking numbers.
It's probably less than 1%, but I'm just guessing, so, I mean, who knows? Lupine opens his video by calling Joseph Anderson a scrub who makes excuses instead of getting good. Now, I thought this was a pretty stupid thing to say, because that only makes sense when talking about multiplayer games.
What? This only makes sense with multiplayer games?
If someone complains and says that Valorant or Counter-Strike is a terrible game because the guns are inaccurate, it is the player's duty to ask people who are good how to become better rather than complain. This logic doesn't translate to single-player games. It is the responsibility of the game designer to teach the player how to play the game, and if over 90-ish% of players do not understand the game's mechanics, then they have clearly failed.
Again, random fucking number 95%. And no, you don't have to fully understand a boss to beat it or even hitless it. What is this weird fucking semantics? What? It doesn't make sense because it's a single player game? Bro, he's literally dodging the same direction every time and getting roll caught and bitching that the attacks are undodgeable. You have to meet the developer halfway. The entire appeal of Dark Souls 1 is that not everything is fucking spelled out to you. You have to put in a modicum of effort and experiment a little bit. Like, we're talking like Margit's insane sword club attack combo, one of the most fucked attacks in the game. How do you dodge it? I rolled to the right. Oh, I got roll caught. I died. Roll to the left. Okay, that worked. Now I know how to dodge it the rest of the fucking game. All you have to do is like, oh, I got roll caught when I rolled right. Next time I'll try rolling backwards. Oh, when I roll backwards, he keeps comboing like this combo. Now I'll learn that. That's all it is. That's all it is. Just try something different each time. Yeah, what is this fucking semantics? Like, okay, let's just say you can't call someone a scrub because they're complaining about a single player game. Can we at least agree that Anderson's attitude and his mentality that he took towards approaching the game actively ruined his enjoyment of the game and was a bad attitude and it made it frustrating as an experience for himself? Can we say that then? Like, what is this fucking semantics?
In fact, Lupine's own video proves that Elden Ring didn't teach him jack. Lupine says that he didn't enjoy Elden Ring bosses on his first playthrough. It wasn't until Malenia, the hardest optional boss in the endgame, where he learned to fight Elden Ring bosses correctly.
I had to face this realization myself.
Yeah, 100%. Like I said, the lesson I learned is that I should just rely on the mechanics that the game gives me to enjoy it, and then I can just learn this shit outside of the game instead of having to dedicate dozens of hours to like learn it. It's there. You can flawless these bosses if you want to put in the time, and I think that's fantastic. Like, why would you not want a higher skill ceiling? That makes the game more enjoyable. Like, what are they supposed to do? Are they supposed to make bosses as easy as Dark Souls 3, even though they've already done that? And like try and design bosses in a way that's like obvious to like 85%, 95% of all gamers should be able to intuitively, as lazy as they are, to like understand every single attack, because that doesn't sound like a hard game anymore. If 95% of all gamers, like my grandmother, can like just see a fucking insane boss combo and be like, oh yeah, the first time I've seen this attack ever, I should dodge left, back, and then wait forward, and it looks like I can fit a jumping R2 over this attack. If you could just instantly like analyze that with your eyes the first time you fight a boss, that probably isn't a hard boss. Like, a good boss is worth learning, isn't it? Isn't that the whole point of Souls games? Like learning through trial and error, learning from failure, getting over your failure, persistence. Isn't that the entire point? But yeah, that was my big moment, was with Malenia after my first playthrough, for sure. And guess what? I didn't have to know how Elden Ring bosses worked. I got all the way to her just playing it like Dark Souls 3 without even using shields or fucking Ashes of War. And it was fine. Like, I didn't hate Elden Ring on my first playthrough. I loved it. And I didn't even understand how the bosses worked until Malenia. You don't have to know that to enjoy it.
When fighting Malenia, even with the literal thousands of hours in multiple different From titles.
Elden Ring is already the least
Well, like, Malenia changed my mindset, but like I couldn't figure out Malenia. I guess like you could say I didn't learn how to dodge the clone attack or waterfowl on my own, except Bloodhound Step helped me like learn how I'm supposed to do it. I just couldn't execute it on medium roll. The big thing was that I was playing too big of a pussy. My problem with Malenia was that I was playing uber passive because of the healing, when I should have just like gone apeshit and gone for the posture breaks, because it's a way better reward for aggression than the rally system in Bloodborne. And then I had a way easier time. I just had to play more aggressively and not care about the odd hit that I would take.
Replayable FromSoft game.
Like, I didn't have to fully 100% learn Malenia's moveset. I just had to do like when Anderson said those 9 out of 10 punishes. You would get it a lot of times, then one time it just wouldn't work out for you. I would just keep going for those. So sometimes I would take a handful of hits, but she wouldn't heal that much, and I would get way more posture breaks, and I would just dumpster her. It was night and day.
And you're saying you didn't have fun with the bosses until the very end?
No, I didn't say that. I loved the bosses until the very end. I just didn't understand how they worked until the end.
Doesn't that mean the game didn't teach you its mechanics? If you are the type of player who only plays through a Souls game once or twice and expects to be able to understand most boss movesets in less than 10 tries, then not only will this video not defend Elden Ring bosses, it will further prove why you dislike them.
Does that sound like a hard game to you, a quote-unquote hard game? Someone who only plays a Souls game once, they should be able to fully intimately understand every boss on one single playthrough. Does that sound like a hard and challenging and rewarding game or satisfying? Because it doesn't to me.
There are essentially two main reasons to dislike Elden Ring bosses. One is that they are not mechanically fun because there aren't enough openings, and the other is that they are too difficult due to their movesets and high damage. As I'll prove in this video, the first complaint is genuinely untrue for the vast majority of bosses other than maybe 1.5, but the latter issue is still completely valid to have. As previously discussed, you can't make the extremely difficult to learn and execute boss movesets any easier, because Souls games don't allow you to adjust boss movesets, so you're stuck summoning and hit trading to win. Although I said some things in my original...
But isn't that like what people love about Sekiro so much? And that's like what they always say, is even though I don't really agree with it. Oh, you can't. The only way to improve is to just literally physically get better at the game. Like, and like we already established, you can just make it easier by your playstyle. So like, yeah, you can't change the boss moveset, but your playstyle and your build and everything can like affect that. So why would you have to change the moveset? Like I said, you can, everyone, like, it's not just Elden Ring. You can beat this game and enjoy it without ever learning how the bosses work or without ever knowing that combo flowcharts exist. But like, that's how it's always been. The other games were a lot more simple, so you like people would understand most, like, more of it, but like no one knew that like Pontiff has combo flowcharts, Dancer has combo flowcharts, Gale has combo flowcharts, fucking Smelter Demon has combo flowcharts, all the Bloodborne DLC bosses have flowcharts. No one is like sitting here, like no first time like one playthrough ever Bloodborne player is like, wow, Maria has some like interesting hitbox jank, and like her attacks coming out in 4 frames is kind of scuffed and like blah blah blah. And you've never had to 100% understand a boss's mechanics or master it to beat it or enjoy it. You have never had to do that. That is not a requirement. If it's so hard to understand that 95% of people can't fucking learn a boss in this game properly, why is it that it took like, you know, 5 years, it was like 4 years or something, how many years was it, until someone can hitless Bloodborne? But in Elden Ring, within like a matter of months, every single, even though it's got more than double the amount of unique bosses of Dark Souls 2, which had like 41, 42, how come in a matter of months, every single boss has been solved hitless, no roll at base level, unupgraded weapons, like that quickly? It's there if you want to learn it.
Elden Ring critique that I now disagree with.
I'm coming off way too combative, but that's because I'm still irritated from playing Godfrey, and I have a stomach ache, so I'm getting really pissy. But this is like the part of the video where he's like disagreeing with me, so I'm getting a little combative. But yeah,
the thing I definitely got right was the title. Hard is the new normal. There is no normal mode where you memorize boss movesets and defeat them with minimal hit trading in a moderate amount of time. However, I did get one big thing wrong in my critique when I said that the hard mode wasn't fun due to a lack of openings. I now quite enjoy the extremely difficult boss movesets presented in Elden Ring, and I just wish that the developers were better at teaching the player how to interact with the boss mechanics.
I feel like Margit is the great teacher. He has the most amount of combo flowcharting, I think, out of any boss. Every time you do something different to an attack, he will follow it up with a different follow-up. That should be a pretty good teacher of what to expect from combo flowcharts. It's like, why doesn't Dark Souls 1 have a pop-up that teaches me about poise? Like, the ironic thing is, Elden Ring is more in your face about teaching you explicit mechanic than Dark Souls is, because there's like pop-ups and shit. It's like, here's how the summoning works. Like, that never used to be a thing. It's like if someone played Dark Souls 1 and was like, I wish everything was like better and more like explained off the start. Like, that's not why people like Dark Souls 1. I think Margit has a good point about Margit's arena. Margit's arena? I mean, yeah, the terrain is brutal in these boss arenas. Like, everything has sloped arenas now. It's fucking annoying. It's just like we're at that point of the cycle. Every time one of these games comes out, everyone's like, oh, it's bullshit and it's impossible and it's different and I hate it. And then a year later, it's like, well, it might be okay and it's more enjoyable like when I've learned it, and like on more subsequent playthroughs it gets better. But it's the game's fault for not teaching me.
I've been throwing around the word teach a lot throughout this video without actually saying what needs to be taught to the player, so let me explain what mechanics a player needs to know in order to enjoy Elden Ring boss.
I disagree already with this entire section because, as I've already talked about, you don't need to understand any of this to enjoy or beat any of these bosses by a huge margin.
Elden Ring boss design is turn-based combat with a twist. The twist being that you have to earn your turn through posture break. This creates an amazing flow state where a player capitalizes on extremely tight openings within a boss's combo string, and then after dancing with the boss for a while, the player is rewarded with a moment of calm. It's also fun to min-max the amount of damage done during posture break by hitting them with attacks of varying lengths before and after the riposte. In order to break the boss's posture, the player needs to use fully charged heavy attacks, jumping attacks, and most weapon arts deal a similar amount of posture damage to charged heavies.
Yeah, ashes are fucking crazy in this game. But that is one thing I failed to mention in the video, is that Elden Ring does an amazing, magnificent job of making every move in a weapon's moveset viable, making it a full moveset, making it opportunities that need to be done quickly with an R1 with low recovery and keep rolling, making opportunities that you can quickly buff your sword with Royal's Night Resolve and then keep rolling and then hit later. Big combos that you can strafe and then do a fucking fully charged R2, simultaneously jumping an attack and landing a jumping R2 and then low profiling the follow-up. Like, or you could just do a jumping R1, so you still get the jump dodge, but extremely low recovery and way less stamina usage, and your stamina starts regenerating faster, so you can keep going. Like, in Dark Souls 3, all you hit is R1. Like, there is no reason to do any other fucking attacks in that game. And, like, the posture system helps with that. So it's beautiful. It's beautiful. It's a big step up, honestly.
Maybe a little less. Every boss has 4 types of openings. There are delayed attack openings, positioning-based openings, jumping heavy openings, and obvious openings, or turn-based openings. Since a boss's posture bar is constantly...
I think there's more. Like, there's ones where you can do mid-string combos, right? Mid-string attacks, and then there's like, you can, like Mohg, you can do a jumping R2 from neutral because you will low profile his follow-ups. So you could do neutral attacks as well.
Being drained.
Took me a bit of time to get out of the Souls mentality of just using R1. Yeah, like, exactly. That's why it's so nice. It's good that, like, you still have games that are challenging and fresh to, like, people that have just played nothing but Souls games, like degenerates, right?
The player has to take advantage of every single type of opening, or else
you do not have to do bosses in order. No,
impossible.
A few you do. Like, you have, like, to get to like this area, you have to kill one certain boss. So like some are like that, but really no. It's an open world, so you can kind of do it in whatever order.
Unlike Sekiro, a boss's posture regen doesn't seem to be related to HP loss, so the player has to keep up aggression throughout the whole fight to break posture. When the player reaches the first mainline boss Margit, they are supposed to get stronger in the surrounding area's dungeons to be prepared for the challenge. Becoming stronger in an action RPG game is an odd thing, since there are 2 types of strength: the power of the character's stats and the skill of the player. Elden Ring does an amazing job at allowing the player to become stronger through stats, but it is absolutely terrible at improving the skill of the player through mechanics. After watching Lupine's video, I decided to play aggressively for posture break against every dungeon boss, and they died so quickly and easily that it felt like they were normal enemies. In other words, the dungeon bosses that prepare the player for the mainline bosses are turn-based Dark Souls battles that literally are not designed to be played for posture break, since it's too easy. And this applies to every single dungeon boss I fought other than maybe Crucible Knight and the Godskin. Not only do most dungeon bosses not teach the player jack, they literally aren't designed for Elden Ring combat. But it gets worse. Not only do they teach the player nothing, Elden Ring bosses also actively hide the correct way to play from the player. They hide the posture bar, so you don't really know how quickly the posture heals.
Again, this is, I think, the big fallacy of like what, like, his like view of Souls games. Like, there isn't a correct way to play it. I go for posture breaks because I like unbridled aggression. You don't have to play that way. And like, the mini bosses don't have to teach you to play that way, because that's not the correct way to play. That is a way to play and to enjoy it.
They make boss damage
But it is true. Like the mini bosses don't really do that combo flow charting stuff, and then the shard bearers do. So it's like there's a difference there.
really high, so experimenting with positioning is punished heavily, and they don't tell players which attacks are jumpable. Essentially, a player has to do a bunch of trial and error to unlock the fun mode. And it gets even worse. Unlike
He didn't get the peak of the jump there. I've heard this a lot too, where it's like, it's not like some of the particles, yeah, are kind of like you wouldn't expect to be able to jump that, or like even melee attacks and stuff like that. But I talked to people who have beaten Dark Souls 1 and 2, and at the end they said, wait, the dodge has iframes? Literally, I've talked to people like that. They beat Dark Souls 1 and 2, and they didn't even know the roll had fucking iframes. They thought you had to like Monster Hunter it, where you have to literally evade the attack, like not like move your hitbox out of the way, like your hurt box or whatever. So like, how intuitive is that? How intuitive is it that you can iframe a nuclear explosion if you time it? Like, it's not intuitive. So like with the jumping, yeah, it's not really intuitive that you can jump over like a lava explosion, but like you just gotta try, and just a little bit of experimentation goes a long way in this game. Even when I like roll right, okay, I get roll caught. I'll try rolling left because he swings to the right. Okay, that works. Now I'll just do a rolling attack there. But it doesn't stop there. I did a rolling attack, that's safe. Oh, next time I will try and roll left and then charge R2. Oh, nope, not enough time to do that. Next time I will, okay, we need a middle attack. So the next time I do it, and the third time, I do an uncharged R2, and it's like, okay, that's a safe option, and that's the biggest attack that I can land there. So it's like, okay, if this attack I can jump, then I can do a jump heavy here. Let's try it. Nope, I got swatted out of the air. Okay, I won't do a jumping attack there. You got to experiment. Like, you're going to be playing this boss like over and over and over again. Why not experiment and try new things? So like, I get the complaint that like the particles are really weird to like know which ones you can jump and not, but like, how intuitive is anything about the game anyways, you know?
Like in Sekiro, there is absolutely nothing stopping a player from memorizing a boss's most obvious openings and just playing a baiting game, which is what I did in my first video. Sekiro got around this by tying boss victory to posture break, which is constantly healing. But in Elden Ring, you always have the option of baiting out a few obvious attack openings for a boring win. When I first played Elden Ring, I was scared of the aggressive bosses, and had no incentive to be aggressive.
You may deny that? I don't know, because like it depends. Like some attacks you can jump in certain situations. Like you want like the fucking Sekiro indicator for every jump attack. Does waterfowl have a jump indicator? You can dodge it with a jump, but it's not just like jumping isn't just for jumping over attacks. Like the sprint jump instantly takes you more distance than running would. So that means you can jump out of the way of Rykard's Lava Quake. You can jump away from Waterfowl Dance, and like your legs will iframe the edge of it. Are you jumping like that? You can jump to reposition, right? Like Maliketh, you can beat him without rolling. You can just sprint jump to the side. Like you can jump out of the way of things, basically. You're not just jumping over things, and you're not just using the jump to jump over things. You're using the recovery to low profile things too. So there's a lot of different use cases. It's not just like you jump a shockwave, you know? And if it's a shockwave, then you should know you should probably try jumping that at least once, right? It's the same thing with people like, why can't I see the posture bar? I feel like because people, the way they played it, right? Elden Ring is like what he's saying right now. You just bait out the more obvious combos that you know are safe, and you just drag out the fight a little bit, right? If there was a posture bar like that, people would probably just like wait until it's full before they aggress. When you can't see the posture bar, it's like, why not just be aggressive all the time, you know? I guess you could use the posture bar, but like, do we want to start putting, then we get into the whole thing is like, do we need a visual indicator for when you're in your hyper armor frames and like what that window is? Do we need a visual indicator for every parry frame window? Do we need a visual indication for like poise frames? Do we need a fucking, like, you know, do all players need their own posture bar like visible too? Like, how many things are we going to put on the screen, right? It kind of goes against the visual aesthetic. So you can put a few things, I guess, without ruining it, but you just get to a point where there's a lot of shit on screen, right? The solution is just be aggressive all the time, and then you'll posture break them all the time.
Because there is none. An alternate title to this video could be In Defense of Elden Ring Boss Design. The bosses are a lot of fun, but they give you no incentive to fight the bosses in a fun way, while actively hiding the fun from the player and doing nothing to teach you any of the mechanics. If you still believe that Dark Souls
because Dark Souls went so far out of its way to teach you its boss mechanics. Like, you know, posture breaking's in the game. Like, I didn't have to like be sat down and taught how the bosses work. I just had to go, why don't I just try being unbridledly aggressive? Why don't I just try that? Like, just not care about hit trading and just go for it. And it's like, oh, this works a lot better. That's all it is. Like, it's not some ultimate lesson where the game should somehow subtly, visually tell every player exactly the proper way to play. Like, doesn't it already do that? If you play passive, the bosses chase you down so hard and so relentlessly. And when you play aggressive, you are posture breaking them, getting big damage, and you're getting resets, times to reset the positioning and have a breather. Like, isn't that enough? Isn't that teaching the player to reward aggression? I guess like Bloodborne teaches the player more heavy-handedly because it's like you get literally health regen, just face roll bosses. And then people did that because it was more obvious, but it's like not a great reward for being aggressive. It is just a little bit of a like push in the direction of like face rolling bosses and liking doing that.
Teach the player anything because the world's dangerous and you just need to get good.
Yeah, it's not like the bosses teach you nothing. Like, the lessons are there.
I'm just going to say that you're using the game's...
I feel like the majority of Souls vents went to ER thinking they were shit and then hit hard with reality that they weren't. Exactly, 100%, 1000%.
Story as an...
Myself included. I was like, why am I so bad? And then it's just like, damn. But like, that is the impressive part about Elden Ring. It is simultaneously the hardest game they've ever made and the easiest. It is the most accessible. People can jump right in and it's a great time. And people like me who just do nothing except play these games, like these are the only games I play because I only play games like once every week or two. I still had a really hard time, and that's amazing. Like, it's simultaneously the hardest and most accessible. It's amazing.
An excuse for bad game design. There's a reason why Joseph Anderson's video was met with overwhelming praise from Souls vets. When over 9...
Because he has misinformation and just contradicts himself constantly.
90% of people don't know how to interact with the boss mechanics. That's probably a good sign. It's the developer's fault.
This is what I mean. He just, like, it's like one thing that I disagree with, and he's just kind of harping on that the whole way through. Like, 90% of people is a random fucking number that's made up, first of all, and it's just Souls vets that are pissy that they can't do his normal road, like, on their own and, like, fucking flawless all the bosses without having to use the internet. 90% of people do know how to play this game, and it's like whatever they want to do. They use a shield and they have a summon and they have a great time. Like, the game taught them how to use summons. They had a pop-up and it's like, here's how the spirit summoning works. Dark Souls doesn't do that. Dark Souls 1 doesn't have the courtesy of pop-ups telling you that kind of shit, like those mechanics. Like, the game does teach you how to play.
Rather than the players. It also doesn't help that Elden Ring floods
like, the reason people are so pissed is because they're egotistical.
Players with items while doing nothing.
There's just too much self-worth placed on, like, your ability in, like, a quote-unquote hard game, you know?
To teach any boss mechanics, since most players will logically assume that the game is teaching them to lower the difficulty level rather than overcome it. So how do we fix Elden Ring bosses? The way I see it, FromSoft needs to do 3 things. Teach the player boss mechanics, not hide information from the player, and give an incentive for players to be aggressive.
Yeah, like, I don't think this should have a posture bar, because like I said, I don't want it to be visually confusing. I don't want to, like I said, just the same reason I don't think they need visual indicators for every, like, hidden mechanic that they have in the game. But I understand that if it was in there, people would have learned their lesson a lot easier, for sure.
Although I've been harsh on Elden Ring for not teaching boss mechanics, I will admit that it's almost impossible to teach any mechanics within Elden Ring's open world. All dungeons are optional and hidden, so it would be impossible to know if a player was able to learn a mechanic or not. My best solution would be a train.
Ongball got me using, like, prosthetics hardcore in Sekiro. Like, you can just jump all of Fire Ishin's attacks with, like, fire or High Monk. Like, you can have fun using the optional mechanics. They're in there to have fun, you know?
Gauntlet of bosses fought at the Round Table Hold, since almost every player will explore the hub world eventually. Basically, Ofnir would tell the player in Elden Ring speak that if they want to outskill bosses as a master of the blade, rather than defeat them with an overpowered build, then they should try out the Round Table Gauntlet. Then the doors at the bottom of the large room in the Round Table Hold would become unlocked as an optional teaching exercise. Every one of these bosses will only be killable through posture break and have posture visible to incentivize the playstyle. Each fight will take a single mechanic from a remembrance boss and force players to train this one skill. Then after training each individual mechanic, you put them all together, add a few more flashy attacks, and now you're fighting Margit, or Morgott, or Horah, Loux, or Maliketh, and so on. One example training boss could
This sounds like more something that would be done in Sekiro, which they do have tutorials in that game because you do have to just get better. I mean, you could still use prosthetics to like lower the difficulty. Like one mechanic from every boss would make a lot of sense. It's like what are you going to learn? Like Renala phase 1 and you're going to training. Why would you training mode that when you could just do that when you're playing Renala, right? And this is also going against the heavy-handed nature of like how Souls games are designed in the first place. Where the whole point is that they don't explicitly tell you how to play the game. It's all about player discovery, like true player discovery. I don't know. It just kind of feels like it's going against the grain with that kind of shit when you can just learn the bosses by playing the bosses, right? There's no like penalty for dying. So it's like just learn the bosses by playing the bosses. But I do like his idea about having a training boss, like one training boss that has a visible posture bar. That would be a good idea. That would at least make the players more aware of that mechanic and maybe would help people to like push for that so they could see in real time the posture health regening, right? But then it also kind of pisses you off because some bosses take it slow and you'll just see their posture bar going down and you're like, fuck, I can't do anything about it. Teaches you by beating your ass. Like, yeah, Margit is the tutorial boss. Like, you know?
Have a few variations of Margit's long wind-up attacks that are combined with Maliketh's Ball of Death. This will teach the player how to capitalize on positioning-based openings through circling the boss to get a charge.
But like even Maliketh's anime blade, that's super oppressive, that attack. You can get around it for a big punish, or you can just roll away from it, or you can jump away from it, like, or you can just Bloodhound step through it, or you can Vow of the Indomitable it, or you could do like a million things, right? Or you can just tank it. Like, you have enough health, you'll just eat it, right? You're like, he'll hit me with that maybe like 4 times, I'll just like dedicate Nestus to it, you know? You can just use your own like noggin and problem solve and just figure out a solution, right? Instead of like having a tutorial boss like that makes you learn the positional based dodge because that's the normal mode way to play.
Heavy in. There could be another boss with infinite stamina, high turn speed, and some long and medium delays. This will force
like that is the inherent flaw. Like there is no correct way, and this isn't like the only way to play or the most optimal, right? There is a handful of ways to do every dodge in the game, like, and different punishes you can do, right? Instead of doing a jump attack, you can lion's claw over an attack or something. It's up to people to come up with their own problem solving.
Force the player to hit the boss during wind-up attacks, since that will be the only available opening. Then when the mainline bosses do wind-up attacks, the player will realize that some of them are openings. Next, we need to fix all the hidden information. Firstly, every single boss posture bar should be visible, or
like, but this is the thing. There's so much hidden mechanics in this game already and all the other games. Do we need parry frame data to be public, like in a menu in the round table? Should I talk to an NPC who tells me like all the poise break points for hit trading? Should I have a list of all poise break points depending on what weapon I'm using? Do I need to see all the hyper armor frame data? Do I need to know all the motion values of every weapon so that I know what's the most optimal crit repose tool? Do I need to know like all of that? Like, do I need to have like the frame data of like all the recovery on different attacks so that I know if it's more optimal to do a jumping R2 versus a jumping R1, even though I can just try both of those and see which one works? Like, do we want to get into this? Like, why doesn't like a pop-up tell me every like range of like downscaling with how like co-op works? Why doesn't the game tell me about priority out of hit stun? Like, Are we going to tutorialize every aspect about these games? Are we going to get tutorials on like animation canceling, pivoting? Is there going to be like an NPC that teaches us about Walmart animations? Do we need an NPC in there to teach us about instability frames? Do we need an NPC to teach us about counter damage and thrust damage and like slashing damage and shit like that? Do we need all of that tutorialized? Like, how much of this game needs to be tutorialized for people to enjoy it? Damage typing. Do we need someone like beyond lore reasons explaining which damage types are like super effective against bosses and which aren't? I mean, having a sort of training mode you might expect in a fighting game is an interesting idea, could integrate as a dream. I kind of had that thought when I was playing Malenia, because like I was saying earlier about her clone attack in phase 2 being locked to phase 2 and super hard to learn. That would be nice to have a training mode like in a fighting, because at the time I was playing a lot of Guilty Gear and it's like, I wish I could just grind this attack in a training mode like I've been doing with like biking and like bomber loops on Axel and shit, right? But yeah, it's like certain things like that, yeah, I can see. But like, man, if you tutorialized everything about these games, this would become a college course, literally.
Bars visible.
Yeah, we could try on mouse.
This may be
She has posture break immunity on most of her shit. Yeah, do we need a tutorial for that too, about Malenia, how she can like animation cancel, and like, do we need like, and like not just Malenia having posture immunity, like lots of bosses like during the heal and stuff are like posture immune, like animations, like, you know, do we need to tell the player explicitly with a posture bar that it like rolls over back to 0 without posture breaking them, or that you can't posture break during that, or they don't take any posture damage during those? Like,
be the single best solution to making these bosses more fun, since having a visible
it's not out there as a concept. I know, Egg Salad, but like the thing is, the bosses, you can just redo the bosses endlessly. So like they're their own tutorial, like, you know, I don't know.
posture bar would be a clear and constant.
Do I not want a posture bar? Also, what's up, Loux? I don't. No, like I said, I don't want. I've talked. The big argument I've had is with Sleep and Enda, because they want like visual indicators to show your poise frames and stuff, because they're duelists, right? They want to see like poise windows and like all that kind of nitty gritty stuff. And I'm like, man, we're just like, we're gonna have so much like it's gonna be like visually disgusting. Like, whether you like it or not, I understand like having the posture bar visible would make more people more easily understand the posture mechanics. You don't have to understand that to like or play it, or it might not even be that relevant to your playstyle anyway. But like, I don't know, like they don't put it in these like they don't show a lot in these games for a reason. That's kind of like, that's just their visual game design. That's just the way they do it. I kind of like that. I hate playing like games like Neo, where it just looks visually disgusting to me with like tons of buffs and just fucking shit on screen. I hate that shit, like Ubisoft shit. Disgusting. But like, you do have a HUD in this game, so there's that. So I don't know. Like, I wouldn't want a posture bar, but I could see how it would definitely make it a lot easier for people to understand the posture system. Next, they'll say that bosses need to glow the color of their weakness resistance. It's so weird that people are asking for the game to explain it better, which is like, you know, Dark Souls 1, I love it because it explained so much to me. Everything was so apparent and easy and intuitive when I played Dark Souls 1 blind for the first time. That's why everyone likes Dark Souls 1. Dark Souls 1 was so refreshing and game of the decade and one of the most important games ever made, because it was so simple to understand for the layman. Like, that's not what the MO of these games have ever been, you know? It kind of just goes against the grain. So like, I don't know. It just seems like, why are we complaining about this now kind of thing to me, right?
Reminder to play aggressively. It would also show how much posture damage charged and jumping attacks do to further incentivize the playstyle. Another thing that shouldn't be hidden are jumpable attacks. Now on some bosses like Malenia, where
like, I don't think that the fucking the posture, like, I wouldn't mind the posture bar, honestly. Like, it's in Sekiro. I think Sekiro is a gorgeous game. People like will die on the hill of the posture bar, but it's like, if the posture bar was in there, it still wouldn't fix a lot of these people's complaints. They would still be sitting here bitching that the fucking attacks are undodgeable, that there's a bunch of undodgeable attacks, and that the posture bar doesn't matter because the bosses attack endlessly and there's never a time to attack back. People would still be saying that. So like, even if the posture bar was in there, it wouldn't magically have fixed everyone's complaints at the time, right?
a very large amount
I think we're getting too hung up on the fucking posture bar.
This may cause clutter on the screen, but honestly, I'd prefer it if Elden Ring took out some jumpable attacks, if it meant the ones we did have were better communicated like in Sekiro. Finally, we need to give the player incentive to be aggressive. Joe would want the...
But like, if you have fun treating an Elden Ring boss as a puzzle, if you have fun not just executing the strategies, but learning on your own without any help at all how to fight the boss, isn't that more satisfying to experiment and learn what stuff you can and can't jump then, in that case, without just being explicitly told?
Player to either regain stamina
You can jump Malenia's kick, see, like, you don't even know.
or reverse damage back at the boss with every hit, similar to Sekiro's deflect mechanic. But I believe Elden Ring bosses are loads of fun as is and do not need a mechanical overhaul. This is for 3 reasons. Most bosses have tons of openings when optimized, the player is given a ton of stamina from level 1, and you're able to regain stamina with every posture break. One tool Lupine mentioned that could improve Elden Ring would be the revive mechanic from Sekiro. If there is a Shadows...
I actually don't stand by this anymore. I don't think that's actually the case. I thought this would be an interesting idea to like get rid of spirit summons and put this instead. Like, I talked to so many people afterwards that just used spirit summons, had no guilty conscience at all because they never played the previous games and they loved it. So like, I don't think that anymore.
Die twice mechanic, then doing trial and error to memorize positioning requirements would be less frustrating, and the high damage in the endgame would feel more fair. This would allow the player to play aggressively and risky while lessening the punishment, like in Sekiro. An alternative solution is to just lower all damage a lot, but I kind of like Sekiro's idea of keeping the player close to death while giving them an extra life, so I'd prefer the revival mechanic. The revival mechanic would also make it feel less frustrating when you die to a delayed attack. This is because many delayed attacks come out so fast that they're beyond human reaction time.
I don't understand this complaint at all. This is just learning the timing of an attack. This is not new. This is like the bread and butter of every attack they have ever done. Just know the timing of the attack. That's it.
So the only way to learn all of the dodge roll timings is through trial and error. In a game with so much
What? Dude, that's the point. This is exactly what people say when they praise Dark Souls 1. You have to learn the boss through trial and error. That is the fucking point. That has always been the point.
Trial and error, a revival mechanic would go a long way. Of course, there is...
But yeah, like the Sekiro way where you still have the high damage, but you have a revive, that's a different way. But like, you could just optimize a bit better. Like, look at me, I'm rune level 1 and I don't even get one shot by attacks because I have 2 talismans. You can swap out your talismans for any boss encounter in this fucking game easily without changing anything about your build. Like, there is lots of little, like you could use a certain mixed physic combination. There's lots of things you can do to help yourself that way and like not get, you can mitigate the damage by a lot. There is high damage, but that's because you are expected to have explored and found tools to help mitigate that thing. There is a reason they put Dragon Crest Great Shield Talisman right in front of Malenia. It's there for you, right? I am not getting one shot by the end game bosses because I'm using 2 talismans and I am naked. It is so unoptimal to not even wear rags like compared to naked. And I'm just using Ritual Shield Talisman and Dragon Crest Talisman and I can tank most boss attacks. Like even with that setup and an unupgraded Serpent Hunter, I can block the fucking Lava Quake from Rykard. I can block it with a weapon at rune level 1. So yeah, the damage is high, but you can do something about that.
Still one giant issue with Elden Ring bosses, which is that nothing is stopping the player from only memorizing a couple of obvious openings and doing nothing more. This problem is made even worse since playing aggressive causes bosses to land difficult to dodge combos, which makes it feel like the game is encouraging the player to just play passive and bait out a few openings. The way I see it, there's only one good solution to this problem, which is to make melee weapons deal very little damage while making critical attacks deal way more damage.
He's just asking for Sekiro at this point.
This would essentially make the game like Sekiro, where you have to land death blows to win. In order for this change to not hurt build variety, ranged weapons would have to deal way more damage than melee weapons. Of course, if every other solution mentioned in this section was implemented, you might not have to further incentivize players into being aggressive, since the most fun way to play would already be communicated to the player. I'd still prefer it if slowly banning out 2 or 3 openings to win wasn't an option at all, since most boss openings are so hard to find that people like Joe and I wrongly assumed that baiting out a couple of openings was actually the correct way the developers intended us to play, resulting in a terrible experience. Before moving on, I just want to give input on one of Joe's complaints about the bosses. He said he disliked how you can't safely attack bosses from neutral as often as you could in past titles. Now, if you feel this way, that's
a ridiculous
fine,
statement.
but I think it's a non-issue, since if you walk up touching distance to a boss, they will always initiate a long combo chain that will almost always have many openings within it, so you can just keep up posture damage. You really don't need to attack from neutral to always stay in a flow state, so the player doesn't need the ability to cancel attacks like in Sekiro.
This person likes Sekiro, but again, they're one of those people that say, why I never use prosthetics or combat arts. It's like, ugh, so vanilla. But yeah, that whole statement that like it was so easy to attack bosses from neutral in Dark Souls 3. That's such bullshit. You go try do that in Dark Souls 3 and you'll get your ass slapped, like any of the Souls games doing that. Just the same way that people have this random like fucking cope complaint that strength builds are unviable now. Like strength builds are the best builds in the game. They have the best options and some of the most options. And also if you're just talking about colossal weapons, they are the most rewarded playstyle in this by far. Playing Colossals in previous Souls games was fucking abysmal. That was like truly punishing you for playing that way. It was way worse. Like you didn't have shit like the posture mechanic. You didn't have stuff like the jump dodge. You didn't have like a reason to do like charge attacks or like heavies. You were gimping yourself by using Colossals in previous games. There is a legitimate reason to do that now. Just attacking in neutral is just a shortcut to the bonfire. That is a thing that has been in every game. That is just an insane statement, you know? Oh, Mukram.
If you've made it this far into the video, you might feel tricked, bamboozled even. I titled the video In Defense of Elden Ring Boss Design, and then proceeded to point out every problem with Elden Ring boss design. Now it's time for me to actually start defending.
I guess it really just comes down to how far does the developer have to hold the player's hand to like make them enjoy a game like the proper way. When there is no proper way, like you could figure it out if you just put in the effort to learn it, like if you want to do it. And if you don't want to put in the effort to learn that, you don't have to do that. You can just fucking, you know, use the other shit, the plethora of other stuff that they designed in this game. If you want to bait out fucking safe combos, put a fucking casting tool in your offhand and you can pepper the shit out of them with spells when you're far away. And then when you're up close, you bait out those like safe attacks that you want and just rinse, repeat that. The player has to meet the developer halfway at some point. That is just the gamer problem that developers have to deal with. The ego, the laziness, and the entitlement of gamers. They feel entitled that they should be able to beat a game that they purchase and that the game should have a tailored difficulty specifically to them because they purchased the game. Their laziness because they don't even want to bother with all the stuff that they spent God knows how many hours designing Ashes of War and all the cool summons and the shields and making the guard countering mechanic and doing all that shit. People just won't use it because I don't want to play like that. I don't even want to try it. Elden Ring is too hard and it's too easy and it's too big and it's too small, right?
These bosses. Of course, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that every boss is a banger, but the vast majority of them are mechanically enjoyable, or at the very least not bad.
Yeah, you take Elden Ring's Remembrance bosses bar for bar against the previous franchise bosses, besides Sekiro. Sekiro is so sick. It's night and day in my opinion.
To prove this point, I'm going to reevaluate the mechanics of every boss I once disliked using new strategies.
Because like the thing is, like, what is the mechanics of Dark Souls 3 bosses? You press one button, like you only press R1 for punishes, you only press dodge for dodges. And that's it. You don't even have to worry about directional dodges in Dark Souls 3 because the iframe dodge in that game is so free, it doesn't matter. All you are doing is playing a rhythm game. Roll, swing, roll, swing. And then DS1 and DS2 is just quite primitive compared to like these modern games. It feels different, more slower, more methodical, less, you know, balls to the walls action packed. So some people can prefer that. And Bloodborne is just tailor-made to face roll, like with parries just one-shotting everything, the rally system, limb break system, just chain stunning bosses to death. Like it really does push you down that path, like the super high damage of the player in that game. In DS1, once you have Havels, you can outtrade every boss outside the DLC and don't even have to chug other than on 4 Kings if you get far away. Yeah, and just for the record for the YouTube video, because I've already said this before, but like he talks about easy mode and like hard mode and all this like nonsense, right? My normal mode in Dark Souls 3 on my first playthrough ever, my first Souls game, I got the Havel armor. I just found it. And there's not even passive poise in Dark Souls 3. So it's not even that good compared to other games. But I found the Havel armor and I first tried Slave Knight Gale and Midir. And it took me 3 attempts to beat Demon Princes. That is so fucking easy. Because I knew every single attack I see, I just tap the dodge button. And anything I ate, because I didn't know the timing of any of the bosses yet, I would just eat the attack and I took like no damage because it was so broken. Literally my first Souls game, first time ever, I first tried Gale and Midir. Like that is a problem. And it's not because like I'm some god gamer. It's because like I found some shit in the game. In this game, if you need to be tankier, just get like Dragon Crest Talisman or something, right? Get the heavy armor, just put Bull Goat on. Just like play how you want to play, just like have more heavy armor, like, you know?
Try to give some tricks and tips on how to deal with certain attacks, and I might even defend Waterfall Dance or something crazy like that, so stay tuned, folks. I won't be using healing items or a strong weapon to prove that I'm not relying on hit trading to win, although I did heal when fighting a couple bosses that I didn't find fun enough to defend. Now it's time to begin the defense of Elden Ring bosses by complaining about how Margit is a terrible first remembrance boss.
Ah, no. In my opinion, he's the best introductory boss because he exemplifies the combo flow charting, the relentless nature, just like teaching you delayed attacks. Like, I don't know. I think he does a pretty damn good job, but it's hard to consider him an introductory boss compared to like Iudex Gundyr because it's an open world, right? I think Margit is a great teacher. I think he exemplifies the Elden Ring's combat design perfectly. Like he's maybe like the best example of it, honestly.
I've heard some
Margit's remembrance. Yeah. What do you think? We don't know what he means. Like he's a mainline boss. We don't got to get into semantics. Like, is he a scrub because it's not multiplayer?
Whiners actually tell me that Margit is great at teaching the game's mechanics, and they're wrong. He's awful at teaching boss mechanics. The goal of Margit's design is to teach players to circle him to land hits during his attacks.
Like you can learn his combat and understand how Elden Ring combat works, or you can learn, oh, I should go explore this open world game about exploration and get stronger through stats, which is something that people have done in every Souls game ever. They have stats and efficient builds to a point that carry them through the boss to like a big degree, right? So he does his job.
They do this by having him input read combo extenders if you attack his.
That's not an input read. That's a combo. If you're standing in front of him, he's going to keep doing the combo. And his telegraph is him holding his fucking hand way in the air, ready to summon a dagger. That's not an input read. It's a position-based combo.
His face, so you need to circle to his back to get a hit in.
No, if you circle to his back, he will jump away constantly. If you stay in front of him and finish out the combo, you can get the punish. And then, yeah, like you do a roll attack, he'll start up a new combo. Then you can go into that. Like if you need a reset, just roll behind him. He'll jump away after that. There you go.
Also, his tail swipe is an opening.
Like you can dictate the dance of like, do I want to keep playing aggressively because I have a lot of stamina? You just stay in front of him, roll his shit to see it through to the end, punish him. If you're getting a little flustered, low on stamina, you just roll behind him. He'll jump away from you.
For a jumping heavy, which further encourages circling to his back as the correct strategy. So why?
Also, I've had some comments of people being like, well, what do you think about since the bosses are confirmed to input read? Personally, I think input reading is bullshit and it's really bad and they shouldn't have included it. I'm like, what are you talking about? I can only think of 2 input reads in the game, and those are both heal punishes with the Godskin Duo's Flame Orb and whatever other boss does. Like, I think Margit has like a dagger attack, right? Like, the only input reads, which are animation reads or whatever, are heal punishes because you are healing in the middle of neutral in front of a boss in a fight to the death. Like, obviously, they're going to throw some shit at you and heal punish you, right? This is not a new thing. This has been since Dark Souls 1. If you get hit, you shouldn't try and run away and heal in the middle of the arena with the boss staring right at you. You should just keep rolling, and instead, when you get to a point, just have that, like, the balls to just keep going. When you're 1 hit from death, roll like 2 more attacks, and then when you get to the next spot where it's like a punish window, instead of hitting them, you just heal. That's it. This is not a new concept. This has been around since forever. If you heal in neutral, you got lucky. It's not bad that the boss punishes you for that, you know?
Why do I think Margit is
And then no one cares about Gwyn input reading. Exactly.
An absolutely awful tutorial boss? Well, the entire strategy to fight Margit is about circling to his back, and the developers put him in the worst arena possible for a...
But like, what did the other Souls game introductory bosses teach you about anything? What did they teach you? What does Iudex Gundyr teach you? What does Asylum Demon teach you? Asylum Demon teaches you, okay, you can come back later and it's a lot easier, right? Iudex Gundyr teaches you that you should just press iframe for every attack in the game. And that's all there is to know about Dark Souls 3. That is the limit of the complexity. So Margit has a lot to teach you, and he does teach you a lot of that shit. There is nothing for the other games to teach you except you should press iframe to dodge. What about Sekiro? Sekiro has Genitro's not really, it's a scripted death. You don't redo him, right? So it doesn't count. You have the tutorial boss about this is how the posture system works, right? Good that they tutorialized that. In my opinion, the first mandatory boss of Sekiro, you don't even have to fight that guy, actually. You can run past them. The first mandatory boss in Sekiro is Unchained Ogre. What does that guy teach you? About grab attacks? It's so stupid. The first mandatory boss in Sekiro is a boss that you don't want to parry that much. Most people just frantically dodge him. The fact that Unchained Ogre into Blazing Bull is the early game mandatory bosses is baffling to me. With the chip damage on the fire from Blazing Bull, that is so bad at teaching people the proper, people do that and then they freak out when they realize they can parry Guardian Ape because it's not a sword, so they didn't think to parry it, right? Because they got brutalized by Blazing Bull and Unchained Ogre. So I feel like Sekiro has a dog shit introductory teaching segment, and Bloodborne too. Maybe it teaches you well, but I think Bloodborne has the most oppressively hard starting area out of any of the games. High Wall and DS3 is kind of hard, but Margit's teaching you about the posture system. He's teaching you about combo flow charts. He's teaching you about using delayed attacks to regenerate stamina or to get a punish. He's teaching you that you should go explore and get stronger through stat allocation. I feel like he is teaching you quite a bit, and he succeeds at that.
Positioning.
What's funny about Gundyr is if you know how to fight him, you can kill him in under 20 seconds. Yeah, he's a joke.
Based boss. Posture.
Yeah, no heals in Bloodborne. What does that teach you? If you run out of blood vials, you're fucked. Restart the game. Go farm for blood vials, When you think about it in that lens, doesn't Margit teach you more than any of those other bosses do?
Damage is constantly depleting, so I have to play aggressive. And then Margit dashes right next to the cliffside, which means that I can't circle to his back without risking death by gravity.
The thing about Morgott is that if you try and get behind Morgott, he'll instantly jump away. That is supposed to teach you not to just circle strafe bosses. That has been the thing that they have been dealing with since Demon Souls, is people just strafing right for everything, and the boss just whiffs all its attacks at nothing in the middle of the air. It's just like Lothric Knights in Dark Souls 3 when they shield bash you for trying to just circle strafe them and backstab them instantly, just like you do all through DS1. You can just play DS1 and just insta backstab every enemy in the entire game, right? Margit is trying to teach you not to just circle strafe him because he's going to jump away. You're not going to get anything out of that. You should fight him head on, and stay in front of him, right? And learn his combos. But he's I have to get behind him, but he's jumping away and he's up against the cliff. So this is bad. It's the game's fault. But he just failed that lesson, I guess.
Fix for this is easy. Just have the player fight Margit in a flat arena similar to where you fight his copy Morgott. I also think that Margit's Phase 2 combos are unreasonably difficult to dodge for the first boss. This makes many players like myself think that Margit is teaching them to play extremely passive.
He is pretty hard for the first boss. And I think he's the hardest on subsequent playthroughs because if you play him even slightly differently than you did the first time, his combos will be totally different and he'll be pulling out attacks you've never seen. And that happens for a lot of playthroughs. He has a very deep moveset. So yeah, I could see why it's if you want to if your goal is just sit down and learn Margit, it's going to take a while. He's actually a very complex boss. But like I said, you don't need to do that. You can just you have a certain amount of stats and whatever, and you just blitz through him. You take a few hits on the chin, you out heal it and whatever. So I get what he's coming from. Margit is a very complex boss. He's a very hard boss for the first boss.
Rather than aggressive for posture break. Of course, I'm not ranking bosses based on how well they teach mechanics to the player, since the entire game is bad at that, so I'll stick him in A tier. I just complained the whole time and then did.
At least he says that. He's fuck, I only talked about the negative aspects, and now I'm but I actually think he's a good boss. That's a problem that so many people have. It's when you just make like 10 videos where like Elden Ring's dog shit, and at the end they're like, but it's my favorite game. It's like hard to like believe that, right? Like not him, but like for other people that do that shit, that drives me nuts. But at least he has the self-awareness.
That I enjoy using positioning strats to weave in.
Like, not that you have to be like totally objective and you have to talk about the good and bad things of everything. Like, that's not what I'm saying. It's just kind of funny. But yeah, like at least he gets that.
Charged heavies while baiting out tail swipes, and his mechanics.
The Gatefront Godric Knight is also very good at escaping circle backstabs. True, true. Oh yeah, the true introductory boss. There is a tutorial in the game. There's that optional tutorial at the very start with Soldier of Godric, right? Do they tell you about the posture bar in that tutorial? Yeah, this game literally has a tutorial. Like that's not something that's in the other games at all. Besides Sekiro, they have tutorial pop-ups, which are annoying, and I have to use mods to uninstall them or to get rid of them whenever I do like replays. That's actually dog shit that Sekiro doesn't let you turn off the tutorial pop-ups. It's so annoying. They also teach you about guard counters. There's a hollow enemy with 5 times more HP. You're meant to stance break. In this game? Oh, in Dark Souls 1? Oh, yeah, okay, like, yeah.
That Godric does that people find unfair because
Soldier
the damage
of God,
comes out so
Rick.
quickly. If the attack was unfair, it
Oh, in Elden Ring, you mean? Okay, thank you. I was trying to remember DS1's starting area, which like has, it's like, here's a shield, here's a sword. It's like bare bones, but it's there. But yeah, like I totally forgot. There is literally a fucking tutorial in this game.
wouldn't matter because it does so little damage, but it's also not unfair at all. The attack just forces the player to always reposition back to mid-range after getting a few hits in, which, as Lupine mentions, is where Godric's kit shines. If you reposition to mid-range,
it's the same thing I'm dealing with right now with Horah Loux constantly fucking screaming at the top of his lungs and like knocking me back. It's so annoying.
And he doesn't do the
I don't mind it in Godric though.
tornado, then you're still so close that you can immediately re-engage for another opening, so preemptively rolling backwards from the attack doesn't slow down gameplay that much. I wasn't going to rank Godric since this tier list is for controversial bosses, but since
Fair
we're
enough.
here, I'll just throw him in B tier.
Yeah, I agree. He's got a pretty solid tier list so far, honestly. I mean, we're only 2 bosses in.
He's a mechanically simple and
But like I said, like this is not a new thing. Like Ludwig works like this. Like lots of bosses work like this, where they're like, okay, the whole challenge of the fight is you to get into them. Like they will outrange you and you have to get in, right?
fun boss that maybe should
And then
have
this is their
appeared
reset.
before Margit. Heading back to controversial bosses, it's time to examine Radahn. I decided to use healing items since I've always known how to fight Radahn
That was Midir's OST. I have to listen to it again after. I don't remember how it sounds.
correctly and just never liked it all that much. Radahn is an aesthetically cool boss with mid mechanics. He does giant attack combos where you memorize where to stand underneath him during the combos to deal damage while not taking any damage.
I like
You
standing
learn
in
how
front
to
of him
do
and
this
dodging.
through trial and error, but so easy to execute once learned that I don't find much enjoyment. If FromSoft zoomed out the camera, it may be easier to figure out where to stand underneath him to avoid damage, but that wouldn't make executing the boss mechanics any more fun.
Yeah, like you can do this like a no-roll strat, but I like fighting a mono in the more intended way, I guess you could say, where I'm standing in front of him, like actually timing the dodges of his attacks. You can just watch my Radahn rune level 1+0 like video to see how I did that. Like I'm not just standing underneath him for everything.
So my
And in fact, I didn't do that because the way his shockwave moves is kind of, it starts as pretty jank. Like it comes up from underneath them invisibly. So like sometimes you're safe underneath them. Sometimes you get hit by like an invisible hitbox with the shockwave starting up. So I just didn't really do this like type of playstyle where you stand underneath them a lot because I was really worried about that.
my opinion probably wouldn't change. Of course, the worst part of the boss is probably just running to him in the beginning. It's just so damn boring.
Takes like how long though? I mean, I just got to do is run to the side, but still.
Overall, Radahn is mechanically mid, so I want to put him in C.
Like, I mean, compared to doing like the Bed of Chaos boss run back or like doing Iron Passage, I'd rather blow my brains out to do Iron Passage like again ever. So like doing like 10 seconds of running through a desert is not the end of the world to me.
B tier, but his presentation is amazing, so I'll compromise at B tier. The next
Nice. Radahn is my favorite because, yeah, same thing. Aesthetically pleasing, great character design, great writing, great narrative, all that good shit. The only complaint I have with them is that his sword combos are really hard and complex, and he gets into more cinematic territory, appeal territory. As he goes on, he starts doing like the meteor moves that are actually pretty simple to dodge, but are very fucking visually impressive. So there is that spectacle towards them. It's just a bit counterintuitive that he gets easier as the fight goes on, but He's still my favorite in Elden Ring. He's fucking so cool. He's just so cool. But yeah, it is kind of weird that he gets easier as the fight goes on. That's my only complaint with him.
Next boss is one of my new favorites, Morgott the Omen King. This boss basically
And it's like, yeah, just use your horse. Like, then you only have to dodge like 2 arrows, right?
removes everything
I also like how he's one of the few bosses where you can use the horse iframes to like get on and off the horse to like just reposition or like get away from an attack or like run past the meteorites and jump the shockwave. And the other thing that people like Anderson failed to like realize too is that like the horse has a jump dodge and an iframe dodge. If you dismount, you get iframes, like lots of dismount iframes. And if you jump, you can jump over things like to dismount while jump dodging, right? People don't understand that about the horse combat to like integrate like jumping on and off the horse as you go on the fly. And there's not a lot of bosses where you can do it though, besides open world bosses.
Disliked about Margit while making the good parts better and more difficult. My 2 main issues with Margit was the stupid arena and how he would spam dash away.
Horse iframes is
Morgott
broken.
fixes the arena by making it a simple ring with ledges, and when Morgott dashes away you can roll to him, which causes him to do a delayed attack, which is an opening.
By the way, he can do 2 different delayed attacks, and one of them is him holding his sword. The other one is with him in his where he does this delayed attack. Or he'll have the animation where he has his hand on the ground, and that's how you know he's going to do the spinning jump attack. So like subtle animation tells like that.
Similar to Margit, you can circle to his back to bait out tail swings that are jumping heavy openings. Morgott has everything I want from a boss.
And Morgott jumps, like he would like Morgott definitely because Morgott jumps away from you less often when you get behind him.
Rewards aggression, has plenty of openings with many varied attacks, and has a fun positioning based strategy to get extra hits in. S tier. Morgott is worth
S tier. He's a Morgott enjoyer. Nice. He's not in my top 5, but I know lots of people that think that's their favorite fight for sure. And I do like, because he's like the most combo flowchart heavy boss in the game, besides Margit. Like his other version.
I finally understood what Elden Ring boss design is.
And like the sword rain making you have to like look up, like free cam up, like you do with Fire Giant or with like Estelle Grab or with like Bestial Clergyman fucking Rockfall. Like he just has it all.
And optimized. It's Sekiro with stamina and a ton of positioning requirements. So basically it's Sekiro but even harder. Although the bosses may require a lot of trial and error to memorize all the difficult to find openings and positioning requirements, once everything clicks and I'm able.
And like my big aha moment when I was using Bloodhound Step is like, what else can I do with these ashes? Once I realized you could use like Golden Slam to jump over attacks and like stuff like that, I just started using Goat Roll on Morgott just to fuck around, and I was like rolling under all his attacks with the Goat Roll. It's like so sick. Because I also realized with him and Mohg that you can use the jumping heavies to like low profile attacks, right? And I was like, well, if you can jump attacks with certain Ashes of War, why can't you low profile some attacks with Ashes of War? Like using the Black Blade or the Blade of Calling knife weapon arts to jump over Rykard's Lava Quake and stuff, because you stay in the air for so long, right? And like using Storm Assault to jump Godfrey's like explosion or something like that, right? Or shockwaves. So then I'm like, what about low profiling Ashes of War? So I just started using Goat Roll and I was just rolling under everything. It was so fun.
Able to stand toe to toe with a godlike boss, I enter a flow state unlike any other game. It almost feels like I'm flying. I completely understand if you dislike Elden Ring bosses after watching this video due to their high damage combined with the trial and error deaths, but in the end, I find that it's all worth it because of how fun the boss flow state can be when mastered.
Absolutely. And it depends too, because like especially on challenge runs, like the bosses like Horah, Loux, and Mohg phase 2 and Radagon phase 2, they are so fucking relentless. Like if you get out of range of them, they will instantly charge back up to you. Like there is no stopping. Like you gotta just go for it, you know? It is very relentless.
Their boss with the fun.
So it is overwhelming, but like he says, once you get into that state of mind, like it's fun. It's fast paced.
Flow state is Commander Niall. Some of his main mechanics are to either dash towards you and do a weapon art or do a
no free cam needed. Yeah, once you like learn the pattern, and then you don't have to, but like it's kind of weird. Like when people complain about Fire Giant, it's just like just use the free cam. You can like see his attacks. They all have like long windups, right?
Storm kick, which he usually follows up with a poke combo. My best strategy is to roll behind him, trigger his poke combo, and then get a charged heavy positioning opening.
Yeah, so I played Niall kind of like a pussy on my playthrough, but yeah, you can jump attack the lightning slams, and then you can also, I think if you iframe towards the frost stomp, you can dodge it. I have footage in my Anderson playthrough of me like playing a lot funner. I just couldn't replicate it on the challenge run consistently.
During the end of the combo.
I like
this
Niall, but
boss
he's
has
very
a lot of medium
simple.
delayed attacks that you can punish with rolling stabs and light attacks. Since Niall's weapon art only occurs after
Niall's just so easy
specific
getting
other
random
attacks,
loops. He's
it always
very
feels
simple, like he's
predictable
quite
and
rudimentary.
fair. Although Niall's mechanics are fun, I
Like
do
this
really
attack right
dislike
there with that standard stomp. I have a theory, I haven't been able to test it, that you can, it's one of those delayed attacks where it's like the delay is on the outside of the AoE, not on the inside, where like Draconic Tree Sentinel's big explosion lightning slam where he debuffs himself, you can roll directly towards where the club lands and it's fine, it's easy to dodge. But if you try and roll away from it, you will always get roll caught. Because I have footage of me dodging into it, and then on the run I was trying to dodge out of it and I was getting roll caught, so I stopped. I think it's like one of those attacks.
fighting the two knights to access
What's
the
up, Bobin?
boss. They do this stupid hyper armor weapon art.
Again, this is a knowledge check. I've heard, I haven't done this either, that those two summoners that like scream like those Albinorox in the room right before Niall, if you kill them, these guys don't spawn. I think those guys are the summoners. So apparently you can just skip this. Like you can just kill the summoners.
So I have to play extra passive with hit and run tactics just to fight the boss, which I find annoying. Overall, I'm gonna place Niall at the top of B tier. Fire Giant is up next. This boss gives the player one of two options. Either you fight him on foot using the horse.
Like I said, but like people don't understand to like get on and off the horse, and then people don't understand to free cam to see his attacks if you want to learn that. Also, all his attacks have different audio tells, so like you can do it based off of that. But I think that he's their best giant enemy they've done because he's like the biggest giant enemy they've done. And it's also a cool flair that he's a pyromancer. Like that's interesting. He's not just a big guy who stomps, you know? But I totally get why people just fucking hate this boss. He's not that cool. What's up, Rofo?
To catch up to him when he rolls away, or you can fight him on horseback the whole time, but you can get one shot. Option one is
that is the point. People are like, damn, horse combat sucks because you just get one shot if you take one hit. Like that's the trade-off. Being horseback means you will fucking destroy the boss's positioning all the time. It makes it super easy to play from horseback. So that's the trade-off. You got to be very careful because if you take a hit, you're just gonna die, right? That is the trade-off. That is the point.
Unbearably boring, as you have to slowly run after Fire Giant's feet that keep moving around, only to do one speck of damage when you reach him. This is made even worse, since you have to wrestle with the camera to see what he's doing while trying to attack his feet. Anyways, I lack
What even just happened there? Did he get stomped on? Oh, he got stomped on by the left foot, didn't he? Or am I just mistaken?
While trying to attack his feet. Anyways, I lack the patience.
Oh, Fire Giant's arena is the most dog shit ever. Like he'll just get stuck on ledges constantly.
Beat Fire Giant on.
And also the way the flame breaths bounce off and ricochet off obstacles, it makes it like kind of RNG. It's fucked.
So instead I opted to always be on horseback to land hits more frequently. My main strategy in phase 2 is to get behind his back since his attacks usually can't reach there.
Again, more incentive for you to stand in front of the boss, learn his attacks instead of just trying to break his fucking AI and positioning, because you get more damage against his arms in this phase and the eyeball if you're ranged.
He rolls sideways, then I follow and repeat the process. It's an easy way to kill this health sponge of a boss.
He's like in the fucking ground, dude.
Now it's time to make myself look really bad by saying that Godskin Duo, the most hated boss in the game, is better than Fire Giant.
Godskin Duo is kind of fucking all right in casual runs, honestly. You just kind of know a little bit about them. You can just kind of stomp them, honestly, even without sleep or anything. I honestly, personally, I have no issue just popping spirit summons in a duo fight if I just don't want to put in the time. Like, I'll just mow them down. Okay, same thing with Valiant Gargoyle Duo. Terrible boss, but like on a casual run, like you can't even do Valiant Gargoyle Duo. I guess we'll just wait. We'll just
hear me out before dislike bombing the video. I don't like Godskin Duo. I just don't dislike them as much as other people.
I actually like Godskin Nova. I don't like Godskin Apostle as much.
It totally should be. I think many more people wouldn't hate the boss. The 1v2 against both Godskin is absolutely awful. I'm not denying that. I did use healing items on this boss because it's really hard to do the 1v2 without hit trading. The bosses tend to stick together, which causes their attacks to sync up way too much.
There are some Godskin
This
Duo
forces the
stands
player
like
to
that are
wait
challenge
long
runners.
periods of time to get safe openings.
Like, where's Mihai?
However, the Godskin have one large
They're not a good duo
weakness.
fight. Like, that's the thing. Like, we want good asymmetrical design duo fights that are meant to complement each other's movesets and like not just aggro you at the simultaneously. Like, you kind of want them to like dance or something, like basically be one boss. And that's not what this is. Like, you know,
posture break, like every other boss. 2 weapon arts in a row is enough to break a Godskin's entire posture bar. You shouldn't have to hit a Godskin more than 4 times to break its posture, usually 3 times. The Godskin also enter a long vulnerable state to revive the other boss, which you can posture break them out of to keep the fight as a 1v1. The 1v2 Godskin duo fight is completely awful, but if you are not able to keep the fight as a series of 1v1s after the initial 1v2...
It's kind of like what DS2 players like, where they're like, oh, it's about like managing like large numbers of enemies. It's like okay, I guess you could enjoy that, you know.
It's your own fault for not playing
crowd control
break correctly. Anyways, I'm going to give this boss C tier.
Ooh, that's spicy. Actually, I don't mind Godskin Duo that much anymore. I just am baffled that it's a mandatory mainline boss. That to me is just kind of ridiculous. If it was like where Valiant Gargoyles are, where they kind of guard like one way to get into one of the underground sections, fair enough. And like the Valiant Gargoyle arena is gorgeous, but like, dude, making this a mainline boss is fucking ass. Like, I don't know why they did that.
If posture break was visible, it might be B tier, but I guess we can only have nice things in Sekiro. The next boss is Beast Clergyman and Maliketh.
I'm gonna take a piss real quick. Godric and Radahn in B. I mean, those are okay. I don't mind that. Healers are kind of whatever anyways. Like, who cares? Okay, we got like a full hour pretty much, so we're on track. I'm just gonna make a drink real quick and we're gonna keep going. Dude, I spilled like half an ounce of like $60 gin. Fuck my life. Best boss would be 2 big rats. The best boss is Royal Rat No, not the Vanguard. The ones that like toxic you and is a gank fight. Headless Ape is the only duo boss I don't hate. I don't like Headless Ape duo. It's kind of annoying because like they did it differently where it's like those bosses are hard coded to like stagger their attacks. So that is like kind of that asymmetric dance fight, but like it's kind of annoying with the way they do it because it's like in the best times to punish Guardian Ape are like when the other one is hard coded, the brown monkey, to like just jump straight at you, right? I don't like the way, like I want them to do that, but the way they did it was fucking annoying. Like specifically to that boss, like when they made it to like when the other apes would jump in and stuff like that.
I used to think that Beast Clergyman was one of
so it's just a boss tier list till the end. All right,
the worst bosses in the game,
we'll be on time.
But I was wrong.
Why do I get $60 gin? I got
boss
Hendrix.
has what appears.
I drank all my Beefeater, so I'm drinking Hendrix in my Negroni. Usually I just save the Hendrix for like Tom Collins and stuff when I just want to enjoy the gin, but you know, you gotta do what you gotta do. I'm like out of fucking bourbon. I'm out of like Irish whiskey. I'm out of fucking Campari almost.
To be an instant damage attack. Not only does he do this attack predictably after specific other attacks, but also, as Lupine mentioned in his video, he holds his arm out in the air as a warning before unleashing the attack. It's odd how this attack warning seems so obvious to me now, when I used to be convinced like Joe that this damage was coming.
It's weird. I don't understand it either, to be honest. Like Bob was telling me, I'm like, bro, why is he complaining about this in his video? Like, look, here's the telegraph. And he's like, I never noticed that. Like, really? Like, I don't know. I just noticed that. I've heard a lot of people didn't notice that. So I don't know. Like the boss tells are more fluid and natural, but they are more subtle in this game, but they are there. That one's not very subtle, but like there are a lot of subtle tells in the game.
Out instantly. Beast Clergyman's main openings are his rock sling and boulder toss. This creates a fun push-pull rhythm where you get pushed away from his sword swipes, but then have to re-engage immediately to punch.
You don't have to get pushed away. Like, look at my Maliketh hit list. You can just jump over and keep on him. It's nice.
Punish his ranged attack follow-ups.
But like, this is a fun way to play too.
Beast Clergyman as he starts his ranged attacks, the longer the attack window and the more posture damage you can get in.
Look at him go.
He has plenty of other openings, like with his ground attacks that you jump, which makes him a very fun fight.
I just love Radahn.
I also quite like Maliketh. I don't know if this is a hot take, but I kind of like it when he takes off to the skies. If Joe is watching this video, this is when he clicks off.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think he is watching this video. I don't think I think it'd be weird if you're a big creator to focus on the negativity and like everyone who makes a video about your video. Yeah, I don't know. That whole thing of like he's just airborne the whole time, I never got it. It's like, motherfucker, play like a dragon fight, or like in any of the games, right? Any of those fucking dragon fights. Like, you ever play Sin? You know? It's weird. Anyway, yeah, I even had people saying like, oh, here's the punish window when he says there's no punish windows. People are like, you're saying you're supposed to like see that, understand it, and register you're supposed to attack in that 0.2 seconds of a window. It's like 0.2 seconds. Like, okay, dude. You can't, like, it was just insane.
Knowing that Maliketh can take off,
but like, I don't mind it at all. Like, because like I said, the weird part is, and look, he just healed with his blue Estus, right? He just drank the Baja Blast. So like, I don't understand when people are like, these bosses are relentless and they never let up, and there's never a time to attack back or heal. They're just too relentless. There's no time to do anything. And then when they play bosses like Ancestral Spirit or Maliketh and they're jumping away, they're like, the boss just jumps away and it's boring and they're just disengaging constantly. It's just wastes of time. It's like, what do you want? Like, make up your fucking mind. You can't have it both ways. I mean, you can have it both ways, but like, that's because there's good boss variety.
at any time makes it feel
But it's like, man, like take a pick, right? What do you want?
more intense when trying to capitalize on every possible opening while he's grounded. Maliketh has a lot of positioning-based openings, which I've always found fun to pull off,
Godric
even
natty?
when I was an
No,
Elden Ring
he's not
hater.
natty. He's as natty as
Whenever
Liver
he
King,
does
dude.
his overhead strike, you can circle right for a hit, and he'll follow up with a ball of death where you just need to dodge his sword swing forward,
yeah,
right,
I love
and then
it.
position.
You just get through it and you can punish it, or when he gets his back to the edge or or a pillar, you can run away and you can jump over the sword swing and to get out of range, because it's really underrated, the sprint jump in this game, how fucking far it takes you. You get instant distance. Like, it is so helpful for dodging out of the way of things and repositioning in the blink of an eye. Very underrated.
Out of the ball, which results in a second opening. While the mechanics of Maliketh's Ball of Death are fun, this does lead to my first issue with the boss, the damage.
Boom, boom.
Although damage is usually high in Elden Ring, a boss that shrinks max HP and applies burn.
No. Oh, wait. This is Maliketh's debuff, right? God, I just about shit myself. I'm like, does he have the Ball Dawkins blessing, dude? No, that's Maliketh's debuff. I'm like 90% sure.
On top of having ridiculous damage values, is just obnoxious. The Ball of Death is basically a one-shot,
he doesn't have Ball
and a
Dawkins
lot of
blessing,
his
thank
other
God.
attacks seem overtuned. My second issue with the boss is his rare chance anime attack,
squishy.
where Maliketh just executes me here. I'm certain I could learn how to avoid this attack with some practice, but it happens so infrequently that I'm not
His anime attack, what is he
allowed
talking
to
about?
practice, and the damage is way too high.
Oh, this one? Yeah, he does that if you're in front of him. You can just strafe it. You can just strafe it to the right. If you try and roll through it, it's kind of hard, or roll away. Obviously, you'll get roll caught. If you roll to the right, you don't even have to roll. You can like walk to the side. It's pretty easy to strafe, actually. But yeah.
I want to put these bosses into S
Let's
tier.
see.
This issue with the boss is his rare chance anime attack, where
Oh, yeah. He usually does that more if you're away from him, though. So that's kind of ass. I could see him like being like, what the fuck? Because he did that really close up. He more does that when you're at a distance. But yeah, the way you dodge that is by running to the right. And then he lands into an anime blade if he misses you.
Maliketh just executes me here.
I'm pretty sure I know what I'm talking about. It might actually be like a variation of the flip that I don't know about.
I'm certain I could learn how to avoid this attack.
But hey, since we don't know, Jordian has a very good high effort written guide that we could simply consult. There are 2 flips. See, I didn't even know that. Look at that.
With some practice.
Like, I have hit list this boss at base level unupgraded, and I don't even know that, which is what I mean. You don't have to learn all the ins and outs of a boss to beat it, enjoy it, or fucking like flawless it even.
Practice, but
I'm not a big fan of cutscene mid-transition fights. Yeah, it can be tough. There should be like a really good narrative purpose for it. But like, even if Ludwig had no cutscene, even though it's so good, the guiding moonlight shit, oh my god. If Ludwig simply stood up and picked up the moonlight sword with an animation, like didn't say anything, you would still have that narrative storytelling aspect of it because of how his demeanor changes and how his fighting style changes, right? His moveset. That is physical storytelling through a fight. That is what fights should be. And that is why there's like the Blade of the Rune HP mechanic in this boss, because that is a part of the physical storytelling and the world storytelling, right?
But it happens so infrequently that I'm not allowed to practice, and the damage is way too high. I want to put these bosses into S tier, but damn it, Maliketh is so clearly overtuned that I'm gonna have to place them at the top of A tier. Godfrey is an—
Damn, still giving Maliketh A tier? He might be having like that ranking syndrome where you just like everything is like ranked too high, but to be fair, all the remembrance bosses are just really good. Pretty good. I'm in on this tier list for
boss.
sure.
You can respond with a jumping heavy attack to every one of Godfrey's ground kicks, and when combined with plenty of other guaranteed charge heavy openings, this boss has an amazing flow. I will say that the jumping heavy timing is pretty tight, since if you jump too late you won't be able to dodge the follow-up attack. Once you get used to it though, the fight flows amazingly well. Horah Loux is also a lot of fun. When he does his giant hand slap combos, you just need to roll around to his back to get hits in. And
see, whenever I try that shit roll catches me and I die. Fuck, why can't I do that shit?
For a grab, it's an
That's the same direction I take too.
I also like how both phases of the boss start doing AoE attacks around the halfway point, since that further increases the intensity of combat.
It is
Although
nice
I
having
like
mini
the flow
transitions.
of fighting Godfrey a little bit more than Horah Loux, I think they both deserve S tier. Radagon is a great boss with a metro.
This is like perfect because this is what I think. Like I like these other bosses, but I understand why people say Morgott and Godfrey are their favorite. And like he's definitely of that mentality. Those are both extremely solid fights. Very solid. I'm just definitely biased towards like Rykard is like pretty simple and like easy, and he's like a gimmick boss. I like it just based on cinematic appeal alone. You know, all the factors. I have a video on the side channel coming about like what are my criteria for what makes a boss good. It's not just the gameplay. It's the character design, the narrative writing. Does the fight tell a story? The arena design, you know, the general aesthetic and the visual design, the audio design. Does that elevate the soundtrack? How good is the song, the theme? There's a lot of different factors there. Gameplay is king, but it's not everything either. Hey, Ghost, thanks for the follow. Much love, man. Welcome in.
Which should come as no
Radagon time. Radagon's a nice fast-paced boss with lots of mini transitions I like, but I can understand why people really get worked up over the shotgun spray and the teleporting.
Surprise. The main issue Joe and others had with Radagon was how he will teleport spam some of the time.
Joe only shows one clip of himself getting hit, losing the attack window, and then attacking anyways. Maybe he's more upset that he gets punished attacking from neutral too often. There could be that, but also I think he just didn't understand how it works and he's like freaking out. Even before the crouch poke was nerfed and like before they made the other attacks and colossals have like better recovery, I had no problem with Radagon, and that's why I showed Nathan's video of him just flawlessing Radagon, because like it's like Radagon's bullshit, and I don't feel like I have to explain why. It's like, okay, well, here he's not, and here's video proof, and so I'm not gonna bother explaining why. Like, the onus isn't on me to fucking explain everything that Joseph doesn't fucking bother to substantiate at all. So, like, it was really annoying when people were like, you just expect people to be hitless runners? It's like, no. Like, oh my god. Like, it's undodgeable. No, it isn't. Here's the fucking proof. That's it. Done. I don't have to fucking spend 20 minutes on this, like teaching you how to do Radagon. I don't have to do that. It's so ridiculous. People are like, oh, you just expect people to all just be challenge runners and the game should be balanced around like the ultimate tryhards. It's like, I didn't say that at all, dude. I am simply showing you the footage and I am spotlighting underwatched creators.
I'm when near death. Joe said this was an unfair attack that forced him into hit trading, which is untrue. Radagon does a delayed teleport, so you need to do a delayed roll. It's not too complicated. The only thing to keep in mind is that you can't do as many fully charged heavy attacks when Radagon is below half health because of his teleport, but there are still some guaranteed charged heavy openings, so I don't find it too annoying. I will admit that the teleport is a little bit crap, since it's a tricky attack that only occurs right before Radagon dies to cuck you out of an Elden Beast attempt, but mechanically speaking...
Yeah, dude, like... Radagon really turns it up at the very end, but he has such low HP. Like with an Uggs, I can speedrun him in 20 seconds in like New Game Plus 2. Like you can smoke Radagon. He doesn't have that much health, but yeah, he just starts going ape shit in like the last little bit.
Speaking, it is fair.
You can like his phase 3 is insane, but like often you can just simply phase skip it without even trying to.
Overall, Radagon is a great S tier fight, but as you all know, Elden Beast is a crap fight.
Elden stars, baby. Like I said, you can dodge it by running underneath it. That dodge didn't exist at the time Anderson made his video, I don't think. Maybe it did, actually. The way I dealt with this is I would run away, and then once it leveled out, I would just run through it, or I'd roll through it, and I would get like 2 or 3 hits, which is like nothing. And then you would just run straight back towards Elden Beast. He's going to start stacking a bunch of shit. It's kind of interesting as a take on like I've always thought like what would be Fortisax is kind of like this too, where it's like, what would it be like if they had a legit bullet hell boss in a game like this? Like a game like Nier Automata is a hack and slash, but it can just instantly become a bullet hell. That's very interesting. And that's like cool gameplay variety. Not even when it goes into 2D mode, like you can just have a boss like throw a bullet hell attack at you. This kind of feels like a bullet hell boss, but it's kind of weird and odd at the end of the game and whatever, especially in a multi-phase like boss battle. But you know, it's there. Something different.
Boss.
So yeah, I mean, like you can just Bloodhound step it. I don't know. Could you like maybe use like Urge? You could probably use Retry Raid Shield and just spam it. There's probably some sort of shield spell you could just tank it and then like blow it up instantly, right? Just like block it with a shield. They just designed this move to hit you. It's like, yeah, but like if for a casual player, if they're balancing around that, like you'll have a tool to deal with it, right? Whether it's Bloodhound step or like Vow of the Indomitable or something, right? I feel like you could probably just like use the shield buff or whatever and just tank it and blow it up, and instead of having the shit track you forever.
I believe the star has been patched to disappear quicker and is less annoying, but having to run across a giant arena chasing an oversized amoeba cell is an anticlimactic end to an otherwise great roster of boss battles.
It is kind of an odd ending. I was a little bit dissatisfied with it the first few times, but I've come to appreciate it now that I understand how to play it. It's a more fast paced than you would think, especially like even like a boss like Midir. And yeah, I just like the fanfare of like the audio visual spectacle and the boss theme. It's like a weird epilogue, but I think that's kind of the point. It's like it's supposed to be odd. It's not supposed to be like a gratifying ending like Gwyn was, right? It's like Slave Knight Gale being the finale boss, just a weird hobo. But like people like, I think he's a pretty simple boss, but like a lot of people love Gale, you know, they idolize him, so whatever. But yeah, you don't like Elden Beast? 100% understand that.
Battles. This is made even worse, since unlike Joe, I actually do care a good amount about the story of most FromSoft games.
I don't care about the story either.
And Elden Beast is so bad that he actually ruined the plot for me. I'm not joking. The most emotionally charged scene of any Souls game is the final encounter.
Yeah.
A good example that I'm going to spoil right now is the ending of Dark Souls 1. In Dark Souls 1, we hear legends.
Can you spoil a game that's over a decade old? Like, how fucking far have spoilers gone, you know?
About the King of the Gods, Gwyn, a legendary warrior.
Oh, and they force you to use Crimson Whirl. That's a good idea. You can just heal off of the fucking thing, right?
Warrior we prepare the entire game to someday surpass, only to realize at the end that he is a weak shell of his former self, no longer a king, but a slave to the fire. And then the music kicks in, and it's just so great.
It's kind of funny that he's comparing Elden Beast to Gwyn though, because Gwyn is 1,000 times more a dog shit boss than Elden Beast is. Gwyn is like the worst fucking boss they have ever made, possibly. Like, because like, yeah, it's a hype moment, but like Elden Beast is better than Gwyn. Like, Gwyn is fucking awful if you don't parry him. Like, you just two-shot him and then get it over with. Nathan, you're like the resident Gwyn expert. Who would you take bar for bar, Elden Beast or Gwyn, dude? Like, yeah, it's a hype moment narratively, but holy shit, gameplay-wise, I'll take Elden Beast any day of the week over Gwyn and twice on Sunday. Gwyn is possibly one of the worst bosses they've ever made.
The only time FromSoft games ever give me goosebumps is in these final epic moments, with the ending of Dark Souls 1 and Sekiro being some of my favorite scenes in gaming. So let's look at how the final moments of Elden Ring connect to its story. We fight some of FromSoft's most mechanically difficult bosses ever, while being constantly reminded that there is one god above all others in the land. The blacksmith keeps talking about how he needs to craft a weapon capable of slaying.
I think Gwyn just has way too much mechanical jank. Like, he's literally the most unreliable boss ever. He's old. Hold on. Gwyn. We just hate the elderly. Gwyn, Lord of Shitty Design, 19 videos. This looks like hell. Okay, is there a no parry though? Lowest possible damage, 4 hours.
Really want.
He's not
I
in
would
second as a
recommend
character.
Christ. I don't know the nitty gritty details about Gwyn.
Playing a god, building up more anticipation. We stare out at the Erd Tree, knowing that within it
Oh my God, I just
slumbers a
pounded this
divine
Negroni.
entity
You gotta chill.
above all others, only for it to be this stupid blob that keeps running away.
It is kind of supposed to be anticlimactic. Like, I think it's not supposed to be like a big triumphant ending. It's supposed to be odd, you know?
FromSoft should have just made a
It's
super
supposed to make you question like what you just did.
difficult Phase 2 Radagon to send off the game on a bang, but instead we get the largest anticlimax in the Souls series. Elden Beast is
Not an
F
okay
tier.
reference.
I will never understand how the worst boss in the game was used for the ending. There are only
I don't know if you compared Elden Beast to the mini bosses, but yeah, as far as remembrances he goes, he's pretty fucking low.
2 optional bosses left to rank, and the next one is a personal favorite of mine, Mohg, Lord of Blood. Joe
He's got the most
dislikes
jank,
Mohg
but he's
because
still the
he is
most
able
fun,
to
baby.
land 3 guaranteed hits with Niall, I think is how you say it, between Phase 1 and 2, but I actually think
It's pronounced.
this makes the boss better. In fact, I don't mind Niall so much that I got hitless
Brain,
on
what's up? I saw
Mohg
you
with
before. I
the
forgot to say hi.
exception of getting hit by Niall. The reason I like Niall is because Mohg's mechanic of lighting parts of the floor on fire is only tense if you can't just tank through all of the fire. The less health I have, the more fun Mohg is, since I have to dynamically figure out which direction to roll based on the position of the fire around me. Mohg
Yeah, you
is
really do have to
basically
keep
like
it in the back of your
Prologue
mind.
if she was actually difficult, which I love.
Dude, that's like what I already have saying in one of my videos that's coming out. It's like, yeah, Quelaag, not the most mechanically interesting or hard boss ever, but like still cool because Dark Souls 1 is still cool.
Another reason why I like Niall is because the player is given 3 free openings during Mohg's ritual countdown attack, which compensates for the loss of 3 heals. And we're losing 3 heals out of a total of 15 if you include all of the flasks.
Yeah, this
so
is just
taking
what I say.
3 away really isn't a big deal since that's already way too much. Phase 1 Mohg is a simple duel, but the real fun starts in Phase 2. He starts throwing around blood fire with every trident swing, and adds cool explosion attacks to the end of some combos that test your quick thinking skills
Is
on
Max
where
14?
to reposition to avoid the explosion
I don't even know.
and all the damage on the ground. The only thing I dislike about Mohg is how in Phase 1 he can throw fire at his feet and then do his ritual countdown
You can stand behind him and charge R2 him here.
attack, which is supposed to be a free opening, but he's
Yeah.
standing on fire, so me, right?
You can just stand behind him and hit him.
Outside of this one issue, Mohg is perfect. One of my
Or you could just roll away, and if you had a ranged option, you could just throw something at him, you know, like chuck a fireball or something.
favorite bosses in any FromSoft game ever, including
14 plus
Sekiro.
12, damn.
Mohg is
I didn't
more
know that.
than S tier. He's double S tier. Better than all the rest. It's time.
Baby. And like, dude, there's so much jank with Mohg, but he's so good. Mohg is good because his phase 2 is so relentless. And I feel like the people that bitch about Niall, because a lot of people just like to grasp for excuses and stuff like that. But like, I feel like a lot of people fail to ask themselves like one question: what were the developers going for? What was the intention, do you think? When it comes to Niall, you have him doing like the countdown and you get these hula hoops appearing around you and you're like, what is that? Creates a sense of mystery, a sense of unease in phase 1. You're like, it's going smooth because he's kind of simple in phase 1. And you're like, this seems a little too easy and I don't know what these hula hoops are about. And then Niall happens, and even if you have the tier, people bitch about it doing damage through the tier, it is meant to give you that sense of dread and you being like, oh shit, I fucked up, like I crossed the line and I am out of my depth right now, because the god of blood is coming through to interdimensionally suck all the fucking blood out of my body. and like kill me, and like you're still taking damage through this shitty magical tier that you have that's splintering and cracking. Like you're like, oh god, like one more hit and I'm dead instantly, right? It's meant to give you that sense of dread. They did it to make the player feel something, and that's what art is about. Feeling some shit, you know? They didn't do that to be like, let's just piss off people by putting in undodgeable damage just to make them mad. Like, do you think that was the thought process? It's like what Saint Riot says in his Sekiro is too hard for you video. Yes, I want this game to be too hard because I don't want differently abled people to play these games. That's what I want. I want quadriplegic people to not be allowed to play these games. That's why I like these mechanics. And I talked to Miyazaki and he's like, yes, that is why I made Sekiro so hard, because I don't want the differently able to be able to play this. That's exactly why I made this game. Maybe just put yourself in the shoes of the developer and wonder what they were going for.
Moment you've all been waiting for. It's time I rank.
Yes, I do believe in eugenics. All of this is true. Yeah, that video, we're gonna watch it after this if we have time. It's so based.
The hardest, most difficult.
And you will see that it's just like Dark Souls. It's just like every game that comes out. It's all about cycles. Every time one of these games drops, people bitch about it. They hate it because it's different. They whine, they complain, they make up bullshit that people believe for decades afterwards and still bounce around on forums. And then people are like, okay, well, it might be good, but I still like the older games that I'm used to. And this game, it's this game's fault for not teaching me the new shit properly. And then 4 years from now, everyone's gonna come out of the woodwork and be like, Elden Ring was my favorite game the whole time, you know?
Difficult boss in any FromSoft game ever. It's time to fight
Sir Gideon Othmere, the all-knowing.
My fellow.
Yeah, fuck Gideon, dude.
You fought well until now.
I knew you would come.
My fellow. You fought well until now.
Oh yeah, and Malenia.
You either curb stomp him or you deal with his bullshit of him having more than 20 projectiles on screen at once. It's only good if you like raving and like dropping Molly for a boss fight and you're just like, whoa! It's like explosions with like comet shard spam and like glintstone phalanx. It's like, holy fuck, Rykard's rancor.
Malenia is pretty hard too.
That's the only way to enjoy Gideon, which is like what I did on my video, which is just to put on like fucking trance, like techno music, and just drop a shit ton of acid or something. That's like the only way to enjoy that boss.
Where do I even begin with this boss? Malenia could have been the best boss in the game, and possibly the greatest boss in the entire series, but she was ruined. So let's begin with the good. Phase 1 Malenia is possibly the greatest, most mechanically complex boss FromSoft has ever produced. Malenia has tons of safe openings. Her most common opening is when you run away from her first attack in the combo as she hooks the air, which I punish with the jumping heavy. She will also jump to the player's position with the 3-attack combo.
Interesting strategy.
You need to roll sideways, and if her 4th attack is extra delayed, that's another opening.
I don't know a lot about Malenia because I always just interrupt her because she has such low poise. I just roll poker. It interrupts like all her combos.
Has plenty more openings than just these, but the important thing is that all of these openings result in Malenia getting staggered. Remember that. If you have been fighting every boss for posture break up until now, Malenia will make much more sense. When playing for posture break, you very regularly go for 2 light attacks, like in Dark Souls 3, and instead go for charged heavies or weapon arts during longer openings, since that builds posture break. Whenever you stagger Malenia during her many openings with—
I will just reiterate though, you don't have to just play for posture breaks. That is like the way that I enjoyed playing, and since specifically with the Anderson video, we were both having trouble playing with colossal weapons, right? So it made a lot more sense for us to hyper focus on that posture mechanic. You don't have to do that. But and specifically in Malenia's case, she has low posture. She has some posture immunity bullshit, but like whatever. And she has low poise. Like you can stagger her easily. You can posture break her pretty easy. It makes a lot of sense for Malenia to play this way.
With a single hit and then preemptively start running backwards, then you will be able to dodge waterfowl dance 100% of the time.
And especially now with like the lower recovery on Colossals, you don't even have to like preempt waterfowl. You can just do the up close dodge, or if you don't want to do it because it's not intended or whatever the fuck that means, then you can just run away and sprint jump it the first part.
Unless your back is against the wall, but then you just positioned wrong when you got your opening. After Malenia uses—
or yeah, you can just do this where like you're just gonna start by running away. And like, I like his kind of combat style that he's developed. He runs away to preempt waterfowl dance. And if she doesn't do it, if she starts stringing combos, he jumps over them and staggers her with a jumping R2. That's pretty cool.
Waterfowl dance, you are free to attack her twice during her openings until after 25-ish seconds, where you need to go back to playing passive for only one hit during each opening. What I've noticed playing this way is that the more passive I play, the less likely Malenia is to use Waterfowl Dance in the first place, meaning that I never attack from neutral and always run away after getting one hit in. This led to many victories where I only saw Waterfowl Dance come out once or twice in Phase 1.
And then, so what he's describing is the strategy that a lot of people have for Lady Maria. You bait it so she doesn't do those charge attacks as much, right?
Despite my low DPS.
Like there's a lot of instances of like cases like Ebrietta's charge. Ebrietta's charge is impossible to fucking consistently dodge. So how do you play against Ebrietta's? You play around it so she doesn't do that attack. Like some bosses, you just play around one move, and that's fine. Ebrietta's is bullshit because of it, but you know, like in this case, Lady Maria, Malenia, you just play around that one move.
When played correctly, Waterfowl Dance.
Do you think anyone would defend Gideon? Fuck no, I don't think so. There might be some like mage on Reddit who's like, I love having a magic duel with Gideon. Like a guy who never has to heal blue or like chug blue Estus or like just chain cast Rings of Light like a fucker. Hell no.
This isn't broken, it's genius. And Malenia has so many openings that I can consistently get 3 to 4 posture breaks every attempt. The only real issue with my strategy is that Malenia can do a quick attack while I am running away in fear of Waterfowl Dance.
Asmongold likes Gideon? Really?
To let go of the run button and then roll incredibly fast. I like the challenge of this, but if you think it sounds too hard, you can always just choose to use healing items, unlike me, and then tank the hit, since that is far preferable to tanking.
Or just use a shield, you'll take literally no damage. Jump. He doesn't know you can jump dodge that. It's a lot better. I think it's more consistent.
I think that Malenia is a double S tier fight, up there with Moglord of Blood, is what I want to say, but Phase 2 ruins it.
Hold the phone.
Phase 1 is a delicate balance between aggression and passivity, with a rare difficult attack.
I feel like Phase 1 is too much training wheels and passivity.
While in Phase 2, Malenia can just spam her ultimate abilities whenever she damn well pleases. But
again, if you walk out of Scarlet Aeonia, you could just stand there and do setups for like your big like 80 intelligence requirement spells. You can do that. You can do Comet Azure. You can do like Renala Ice Moon. You could do whatever you want to do. If you have a ranged option, you could do it. Like people that invested those insane stat requirements for those endgame spells can do it for that's when they do it, you know? So that's why that's there. If you're playing only melee, you're just gonna have to stand there and like change your inventory or like buff up or something. You don't get to like throw spells at her if you don't have a spell casting tool. Even if you're a strength build, you can just throw rocks at her. Just use Stone of Garank or something, right?
One attempt, Malenia literally did 4 Waterfowl Dances in a row, each one having a 24 to 28 second cooldown, and she did a 7-second Phantom Spirits move in between 2 of the Waterfowl Dances, which meant I had no openings. What the actual hell? Phase 2 Malenia also takes out some openings from Phase 1, but the worst part is how they took out the aggression-based Waterfowl.
I think what happened there is she animation canceled her stagger into that jump. It's kind of, that's like the bizarreness of her posture mechanic.
I'll trigger for it to be completely random. Now I know why they did this. Malenia is supposed to transcend in power from being a warrior to being a goddess, since that reinforces her placement as the strongest being in the lands between. Although her mechanics do match her lore, it did come at the cost of ruining the most mechanically intricate boss in the game. It isn't fun when Malenia can do 3 or 4 Waterfowl Dances in a row,
Does she
plus
actually
a
chain these
Phantom
together?
Spirits, as I'm forced to just run away and watch her
I've never seen that though, to be fair, but that is cringe.
posture damage recover to full. Unlike every other boss in the game, you
don't have to run away from that though. You can roll it out and then end the roll by getting next to her.
aren't allowed to dominate Phase 2 Malenia because you aren't supposed to be able to. She's a f***ing god.
I kind of like her more in phase 2. Like, she's more oppressive, obviously, just like Mohg phase 2 and Horah Loux phase 2, but like it's more engaging that way. You keep the fight going, so you just keep punishing her in between stuff. I don't like her because it's too hard to learn clones because it's locked to phase 2 and it's a hard attack to learn on your own. I don't like but like, again, just use an Ash of War or something. Like, I just use Bloodhound Step and I got over it. And the problem, like, the thematically, like I said, like, she doesn't use rot that well, considering she'll just kill you out of pure damage before she procs rot on you. That seems like a thematic miss. And like, yeah, her jank that's introduced by her posture immunity mechanic kind of being a ham-fisted solution to prevent her from just being like chain stunned to death by Ashes of War. You can still flip her to death like a burger, but like, it is what it is.
Well, not technically. Technically, Elden Beast is a god, but let's just pretend that that's not true. The point of this video was to disprove the claim that Joe and I made about Elden Ring bosses never having openings. But for Phase 2 Malenia and Elden Beast, this claim still holds true.
I don't think they do. Wait, how does that mean? Wait, he's saying that there's no times where you can attack safely Elden Beast or Malenia Phase 2? That's just not true. Where is this coming from? What? That just came out of nowhere. What? Whatever.
If Malenia's phase...
If you stay close to her, she never does Scarlet Clones. You're meant to stay aggressive and take advantage of a retaliation kick. Okay. So if you stay close, she just never does the clones, eh? So that would be very problematic with his playstyle that he has for phase 1 then. That's unlucky. Elden Beast has no opening. I think he's trying to say something about Elden Stars, but that doesn't add up to being like no openings. Yeah, Elden Beast has like the most, he's like the most typical Dark Souls 3 boss ever, where he just lets you just slap his belly, you know? I don't know what this random claim is out of nowhere.
These 2 special attacks were based in player aggression like in phase 1, then it might be my favorite boss in the entire game, and maybe the entire series. But as it currently stands, Malenia is so overtuned that it sort of ruins the fight. I'm going to place her at the top of A tier.
Yeah, I dislike her for like different reasons, but I'm glad that he didn't like go into like the whole waterfowl is unreasonable to learn, or like healing is just too much. Like, she shouldn't heal. It's like, if you're getting that much where she's healing her health back, you're probably going to die anyways. Like, it doesn't matter. It's kind of just psychological warfare, and like a little bit of her to like slightly get an edge over shields, which she doesn't even, because like I show in my video, you can just use a shield and destroy her. Like, she will never out heal you shield poking, and she will never do damage to you, and she will never guard break you either. So yeah.
I still love fighting Malenia, but the randomness of phase 2 waterfowl solely...
I like fighting her because I like bitch slapping her around, just because I despise her. I'm like, you war criminal whore, fuck you.
It's an otherwise amazing experience. Also, I chose to not learn how to dodge Malenia's waterfowl dance up close, because I prefer figuring out boss mechanics on my own, and if I'm required to look up dodge roll and positioning strategies on the internet to dodge an attack, then these games are probably getting too difficult for me.
I've already talked about this at length, but again, you do not have to do that. You can dodge the running jump away. You can do it the way that he learned to do it. You can use Vow of the Indomitable. You can use Bloodhound Step. You can block with a shield. You can do anything. You can be a mage and just stay out of range of it to easily dodge it. Like, there is so many ways to negate Waterfowl Dance. There are so many ways to deal with it. There is no requirement of you to Google how to do the challenge run dodge that people call it. There is no requirement. And also, I will just put this opinion out there, as I've said before, but I want it on YouTube. The fact that people say that it's unintended and it doesn't count to do that dodge, it's not legitimate, is so fucking brain dead. Why is it illegitimate? Why does it not count? It's just like dodging any other attack. It's an execution test, and it's really cool. And you're trying to tell me that they did multiple builds of Waterfowl Dance, multiple different versions of it, extensively testing it. Like, obviously they extensively test the attacks in this game to make sure they are fair and like you can dodge them, right? Because otherwise, how could you hitlist these games in the first place if they just didn't test anything? You're trying to tell me that no one ever in the testing process ever just strafed right and then timed the dodge and went like, oh, she just went flying off in the wrong direction. Boom. No one did that. No one tested that. The most tried and true method ever that will literally hard carry you through Demon Souls, DS1 and DS2. The strafe to the right and then press dodge if you have to. Like, no one tried that. No one. But I don't buy it. People are just saying that it's fucking like illegitimate because it's unintentional. But where is the fucking interview where Miyazaki was like, oh yeah, we didn't intend for people to do that dodge. We had no idea. Like that's just things that people are saying. That's like, no one knows if that was intended or not. So when people say that's an unintended dodge, that's a load of bullshit. Like, it's not true. Unless they come on an interview and explicitly say, I don't fucking want to hear it, you know?
For me, I also really enjoyed my strategy.
I think it was only found weeks after release. Weeks? I don't know. It depends, because I finished my playthrough a month after it was done, and then I saw it after that, so I don't know.
Of constantly repositioning to mid-range to.
But again, like, should everything be instantly apparent? Should it show its hand like the first time you play a boss or your first time you play the game? Should there at least not be like some subtlety and like more to learn and sink your teeth into? Isn't that more desirable? Isn't that the sign of a good game and well-designed combat when there's depth to it?
To avoid the attack, because this is a mechanic carried over.
And like we said, like I just prefaced this whole thing with, if you don't want to do that dodge or you can't execute it, there is a fuck ton of other ways that you can deal with it. So just deal with it. Don't complain, just deal with it. Pick a way that you like and just deal with it.
From Manus, which is probably my favorite boss.
Like, you don't have that fucking luxury in a lot of Souls games. It's like you block it or you dodge it. That's it. You can strafe some attacks, but like the hitboxes and shit aren't tuned like Elden Ring, where it's like a lot cleaner hitboxes and stuff. You're not going to be strafing a ton of bosses in DS3, I feel like. Although maybe you can go back and like maybe that playstyle translates into those games, but I don't really think they're built for that.
Boss in the series, and I just enjoy always being afraid of an ultimate attack, I guess. I don't think dodging waterfowl up close would make me like Phase 2 any more than I already do, since this wouldn't fix the main issue that Malenia can spam her ultimate abilities while healing her posture damage, and the player can't do a thing about it. Before moving on...
Well, she's only spamming the clone because he's running away, but she can definitely spam waterfowl.
I just want to mention why I don't dislike Phase 2 Malenia's input read. Basically, she jumps into the air, giving the player time to regain stamina.
That's not an input read, that's just a combo. She can just do that.
And then you have to roll forward diagonal to get behind her for a charged heavy. Sometimes this is beneficial, as you can trigger the attack with a light attack and receive a larger attack window for the charged heavy.
Now, if the game was built around this type of thing, I would be quite happy with this kind of interaction. Just like enemies having input reading powers to always throw a projectile when you heal, it would be fun to have a...
That is the only instance of input reading, is them just throwing shit at you when you heal.
Battle of wits where you can react to their reaction, and they could cycle it forward with another reaction until eventually one of you loses and damage is dealt.
What the fuck is Joseph Anderson even talking about? So he wants a game that would be cool where if I R1, the boss will input read like iframe it, and then I will have to react to that and then dodge their counterattack, and then I will attack them again, and then they will input read me again. And like, what? Is he actually wanting a game where the boss input reads you until the game decides you've done enough and it lets you just hit them? Why? What would a game even look like? Like, what the fuck would that even look like? A boss just input reading you until it just lets you? It's like, okay, now I'm just not going to do it. Like, what?
Joe said that...
Is this not me reacting to her reaction? Exactly. And like I said, the way I develop my punish for that, like where she jumps back up in the air, is I just jump at her. If I see that she ends it prematurely, I will finish with a late jumping R2 and I will smack her and stagger her that she cannot interrupt that animation. It's very safe. If she jumps back in the air, I just land on the ground, she attacks and I dodge it, and then I fucking punish her when she's done that combo.
Another reaction until...
A very dangerous input read is when Malenia thrusts you. It does a lot of damage. That is also a heal input read. So yeah, you are being punished for healing in neutral against the hardest boss they've ever designed. And they intended it to be the hardest boss they've ever made. You just sitting in neutral and healing is going to get punished. That has always been a thing. You should stay in combat and heal instead of swinging for one of the punish windows. If you heal in neutral, you got lucky. Like, good for you, but that shouldn't be like rewarded for running away and then healing with the boss staring at you in a fight to the death. But yes, it's a big deal compared to the fucking like little fireballs and shit they throw at you, because that does a fucking shit zillion damage. I think it does more damage than your fucking Estus even heals.
Eventually one of you loses and damage is dealt.
The running stab, it's only input read attacks for heals. This is not a thing for like anything else. Like, they will not continue a combo mid combo if you R1 them. That is not a thing.
Joe said that he didn't understand how the developers who made Sekiro could craft a roster of bosses so much worse in their most anticipated release.
And this is the big thing that I forgot to mention at the very start of this video, where I said I never insulted Anderson, but people took umbrage with my tone because I didn't really respect his video, and they could tell because of the way I talk. But the fact is, I didn't call him a dumbass, and I only attacked his fucking ideas, okay? I swear, and the way I talk for effect and the way I make jokes got a little people upset, and when they disagree with me, they like to write me off as condescending because they don't want to hear the truth, right? So I get that, and I don't mind. I don't care if people think I'm an asshole. But why is it then okay, if it's just a problem with the tone, why is it then okay for a critic who risks and produces nothing of value to talk this condescending about people who spent years of their lives making art, like, you know, a video game? People spent so much time making these very extremely intricate bosses, and he's just going to put no effort in at all, do no research, and just call them like FromSoft fell on their heads collectively and they just forgot how to design bosses. Why does he get a pass? Like, fuck no. Critics deserve criticism to keep them in check. You risk nothing as a critic. You produce nothing as a critic. If you are going to give art shit, you should at least try to understand what you are talking about. Like, have a fucking attitude check. Like, that's why I don't give a shit that I have a bad tone in my video, because like he just gives it right back to the devs anyway. So it's like, well, fuck you. You don't even know what you're talking about. Like, when you have such a shit-eating attitude towards the game, I'm not going to respect your video and make my own constructive video. Like, people told me I shouldn't make a response video because that's cringe. I should make my own constructive video. That's just a tutorial. And it's like, A, that's not how YouTube works, unfortunately. But B, why? That isn't what critics do. Critics ridicule art, like something that someone made. Like, that's the point of a critic. So you should at least have some self-awareness of that and have some respect for what you are criticizing. Not like every fucking piece of art isn't like totally up its own ass and like isn't deserving of criticism or ridicule, but like, let's fucking take a chill pill here, you know? At least try to understand what you are talking about. Put in that modicum of effort and like do some research. Maybe get some other opinions. Do something, you know? That's why it was so egregious to me. And like I said, that's why I showed the Pontiff thing, because that to me were just kind of showed like that he is willing to like show two attacks side by side and cherry pick them and know that they are different attacks because he's put them in slow motion next to each other on an editing timeline, and still go ahead and just like lie to further his bullshit about animation canceling. And then now years later in his Elden Ring video, he is casually citing that as like support for his arguments in his Elden Ring video, which is also full of shit. It's ludicrous, totally unsubstantiated. Like, this is just like my problem with animation canceling in Pontiff. And you're like, what? And then you go watch his DS3 video and you're like, what is going on right now? Like, what is he talking about? He doesn't know what he's talking about. That to me was like he crossed the line of like just laziness into like being disingenuous. It's funny to me that people will just like not like my tone and just like then they'll just write me off as being disingenuous because they don't want to listen to me. And they're like, yeah, he's right, but he's a fucking asshole. But it's okay to just like shit on like game devs, right? Like, why? Why is this like this double like entendre? No, what's the word? Double standard.
He is alive and well in Elden Ring. The only issue is that they were terrible at teaching and incentivizing the player to interact with boss mechanics. I hope.
Just to recap, like I said, I disagreed a lot with what he said at the start of the video, but like I am very glad that he likes the bosses now, because even if you do have that issue, let's just say hypothetically it's the game's fault for not teaching you properly and for whatever the reasons that we said, even if you believe that, you will enjoy the game when you learn it, right? It is more enjoyable when you know what's going on. So I am glad that he is able to enjoy the game now. Which is why I made my video. I just wanted people to like understand how the game actually works and not just like have spread misinformation unknowingly for years on end to other new players. And I wanted people to like next time they boot up Elden Ring to have a totally fresh mentality, come at it with a little bit different strategy and enjoy it the way it was meant to be. That's all I wanted to do. I'm not here to change people's minds. I'm just here to like give people the facts so that if they do want to give Elden Ring another chance, they can do it. And also for people like me who for years avoided Souls games like the fucking plague because I watched Anderson's videos and I trusted him to understand what he was talking about. And I heard what he would say and I'm like, that doesn't sound like something I would like at all. So I just never played them until I was literally forced to play them by my friend. Like literally forced. So like people that weren't even considering trying these games could maybe be like, oh, maybe there is something to those games. Maybe I'll give it a fair shot. That was the only reason for that. So I'm glad that he learned something and enjoyed the game. I'm not going to credit his enjoyment of the game to like my video, but like, I'm just happy that he likes the game now.
For this video that I can convince some of you Dark Souls masochists that gave up on Elden Ring to try it again and refight the bosses with new strategies so that you can get all of the enjoyment possible out of this beautiful game. As you can
it's way
see,
too loose of a
the
term.
vast majority of mainline bosses I used to hold contempt for, I now see as A or S tier fights, which is basically scientific proof that Elden Ring bosses are goated. When
Wait, he didn't even rate the other bosses.
the
Whatever.
DLC comes out, try to fight the bosses with this new mindset of locating every possible opening to overpower the boss through posture break, rather than playing passively for a few obvious openings or hit trading. Elden Ring bosses have an absolutely amazing flow to them when mastered that rivals the likes of Dark Souls
Shout out to
3
Jingles,
and
dude.
Sekiro, so give it another try.
Yeah, when the DLC comes out, maybe people will dip their toe back in and try it out. Interesting video. What was I gonna say? Yeah, I pretty much said everything, and that's not even getting into like how the stamina regeneration is way more forgiving, like borderline maybe more than Bloodborne regeneration. I don't even know. And the delayed attacks allow you to build stamina, like be net positive on stamina while dodging in the middle of combos. Like you can just go forever. You can go balls to the walls. That's the beauty. It's very fast paced. I like that. Oh boy, comment. Oh shit. Holy fuck. Okay. I gotta read this because I also do this. The second part of this comment will be because I already know what his main issue will be with part 1 of this video. If I'm wrong, sorry. Oh god. Maybe we just totally misunderstand each other. Are Elden Ring bosses your favorite in the series? Yeah, generally. Maybe not more than Sekiro though. Bloodborne bosses are dog shit except for the DLC bosses. Bloodborne is really a lot more jank in it, and it's a lot more face rolly. Which is fine. It's fun. The Souls games are too simplistic. The DS1 and DS2 are way too primitive, and Dark Souls 3 is way too free. It's just only rolling, and you never have to worry about even the direction that you roll in. Like Dark Souls 3 is just too easy. The bosses are cool, but like it's too easy. I say that if you don't understand how to solve a boss's moveset, oh my god, I can't read. A boss moveset, the only way to significantly alter boss difficulty is by not interacting with most of the boss mechanics. Dude, I'm too drunk. One counter argument to this could be using Bloodhound Step. Of course, Bloodhound Step is so overpowered that it makes the game way too easy, just like with magic and trading. They nerfed it now. So you'd have to be artificially limit yourself to Bloodhound Step's dodge specific moves that you don't understand, which is what I did. And it helped me to learn the bosses faster. So yes, if you use the internet to get a game-breaking dodge roll and artificially limit yourself to only using it for one specific attack you don't want to learn, then you can sort of achieve an easy mode against certain bosses. Yeah, see, like I don't think this way anymore. Like I said, Elden Ring was like the double down on top of Sekiro prosthetics, where I realized that these things aren't there to make it easier or harder. Like it is there to like be enjoyed and have fun with. Like even though it's an optional mechanic, it is an interesting mechanic. And yeah, and then so I use Bloodhound Step to learn the boss. Once I learn the boss, then I'll just medium roll it, and once that's too easy, then I just start challenge running. Then I rune level 1 it, and when that's too easy, I start rune level 1ing with an unupgraded weapon while naked. Like, and then once that's too easy, I start hitlessing the bosses with nothing, like no magic. And when that's too easy, I do magic only hitless. Like you can keep upping the ante as it gets too easy, right? And you still get enjoyment out of the game. So yeah, I don't, like I said, everyone watch the Jacob Geller, The Philosophy of Sekiro video, because like he says, nothing in life is like this. You are not expected to learn it on your own to enjoy it. Like you can look up how to dodge waterfowl dance and then execute that dodge, and it's a fun time. It's not going to be more fun if you spend 20 hours trying to figure out how to dodge waterfowl by yourself. That doesn't make it more fun. That makes it more frustrating. So like I feel like people think that like all of it is just puzzle solving and that's where all the fun is. It's not. But he did call me out because I brought that up a lot in the video, or in my commentary, I guess. I don't enjoy this approach of having to have a normal mode with the internet combined with artificial limitations. That would not give me joy when I beat a boss. I think the game should just teach its mechanics better for infinitely more rewarding experience of overcoming a boss with a normal dodge. But see, then you only get enjoyment when you learn it once. Every other time you do, like once you understand how to dodge waterfowl, that is the only time you will ever get that fun satisfaction of figuring it out. Every other time after that, for the rest of eternity, The problem is going to be you executing the dodge. Like, there is fun in the execution. That's the majority of the fun, right? Different strokes for different folks, I guess. Also, there are probably a few more items that I didn't mention in the video that can change boss movesets, like Blasphemous Claw with Maliketh. Exactly. Like, there's a million ways to, like, there's a million solutions to each attack. I called that in my Sekiro video prediction, where I'm like, Elden Ring is going to give us many tools to do many different dodges or punishes to different situations. Like, you're not just gonna like roll and swing during the safe punish window in a Dark Souls 3 boss and roll their attacks for every single attack in the entire game. You are going to be using tools and magic and like jumping over shit, or you could strafe shit and do a charge R2. The beauty of it is the variety and the options that you have to do punishing for all the attacks in the game. You have a plethora of options to deal with every attack. There is no one single solution. That's the nice part about it. I don't view this as turning the boss movesets to an easy mode, just a more difficult form of skipping the boss mechanics. However, if you beat a boss with a combination of learning their actual openings and parrying, this isn't true. But if you don't understand how to get openings on an Elden Ring boss and you beat them with only parrying, then you are skipping learning the boss moveset. Even if you disagree, parrying only applies to a handful of bosses anyway, so it's not too important for the discussion. Yeah, like you're learning a boss differently. Like same thing, if you just use pure magic and you use summons, like they're not going to learn the boss. But like, as a lot of Souls veterans found out, you never really truly learn a boss anyways. You will always face roll them. You will always outstat them to a certain degree. He showed moves on bosses that I have never seen in this video, and I have literally hit list them at base level unupgraded. Even at that difficulty, I don't have to 100% understand a boss. You just have to be good enough. These bosses, the games, they have never been about perfection or mastering a boss or understanding the ins and outs of every single mechanic. They have always been about persistence, just getting good enough and just having the willpower to pick yourself up and go back in there and just keep doing it till you beat the fight. So like, yeah, someone who does like the easier way is not going to learn a boss as good as you, but like they had fun doing it. They had fun doing it. You know, it's nice that the game can be as hard as I need it to be to enjoy it. Cause like if it was too easy, that would be kind of lame. It's nice that there is some depth to the boss design, something to sink your teeth into. Something, isn't that like worth learning? Isn't a boss that is that complex and that deep, isn't that something that is worth learning and getting good at? Point of part one in this video is to communicate clearly. There's a subset of players like Joe and I who only enjoy FromSoft bosses when we memorize their movesets and then overcome them with minimal hit trading. But if I cannot do this, I'm just not having fun. Okay, but like you've never really done that, I would say. Like, I think if you hitless like all the previous games, you would be shocked as to like how little you know about like which moves are safe and like what follow-ups do what and what's jank and what isn't. And like those bosses are so much more simple, you know? And in those games, like I said, you can memorize it, but then every single person who ever plays the game fights the boss the exact same way. There is no combat expression like you do have in Sekiro and Elden Ring, where you have a plethora of options to deal with every attack. If you look at Ongbal, his fucking entire channel is just about the beauty of like combat expression. And if you watch his Sekiro and Elden Ring videos, they're insane. They're goated. And you watch him, he's doing Bloodborne videos right now. Ludwig, the best video game boss in my opinion ever. He does it with a Chikage and it's sad, dude. All he does is like strafe a few attacks and like go for some transforming attack headshots. That's the limits of what he can do in that game for like one of the best game bosses ever made. Compare that to like the shit he can do in Elden Ring and Sekiro, and it's not even close. Is not even close. You can learn it and shit, but like having that variety and that skill ceiling is so nice. So like, yeah, some people might have a hard time first learning it, but like if you want it to be easier, just use the easier mechanics. And if you don't want to use the easier mechanics or the fun and interesting optional mechanics, I just say don't complain. Like, it's not a fault of the game at that point. It's a you problem. Like, just do it then. Like, you can do it, so just learn it. But then that's too much time and too long. Well, then just see how other challenge runners are doing it and like learn from them, learn strategies for them. I don't want to use the internet because the game shouldn't make me use the internet. It's like, you know, you're starting to just limit yourself. Do you understand? Like, I don't want to use ashes. I also don't want to use shields. I don't want to use Ashes of War. I don't want to use co-op. I don't want to use any of that. It's like, okay, well, like, learn it. It's too hard. It takes too much time for me personally to learn it. Like, personally, me has too much of an issue learning it that way. Okay, well, like, learn from other people and see how they're doing it. Nope, I don't want it. The game's forcing me to look that up. It's like, what do you want? Like, what do you want, man? The game isn't forcing you to do anything. Like, you are doing this to yourself. That's why I say in my video, I was doing it to myself. It wasn't the game making me do this or play this way. I was doing it to myself. So, yeah.